opening the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education is now meeting for Thursday, April 7th. And could we please have a roll call?
Trustee Dawson.
Present.
Trustee Rivera. Here. Trustee Pav. Here. Trustee Brian Swanson. Here. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Here. Please note all trustees are present this evening. We will now do an adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes this evening?
There are a couple of walk-on items, or one change and one walk-on, Madam President, if I may.
Please.
The first is action item E, which is the school calendars. As we tried to correct the error early on, but just making a notation that there was only one calendar included. It was duplicated. So we sent out the correct calendars and posted the correct calendars on that. So the item now on the website is corrected. I believe you all have copies of the 23 and 22, 23, 23, 24 calendars. So that's just a correction I wanted to note. And then also we have a walk-on item. I believe I sent that to you as well. We will post this on the web as well at the end of the meeting. Contract for Positive Behavior Supports Corporation through Director Claire Davies. And if you would, we can add that to the last item of action or wherever you'd like to add it.
Okay, that sounds great. So board questions, comments?
Nada.
Not at this time. I thought we were pulling some stuff that's later.
When we get to consent, I'd like to pull the last consent item, but we can get there.
Yeah, okay. So any public comment at this time? Hearing none. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move to accept the agenda with the changes previously discussed.
I'll second.
So a motion was made by Trustee Brian Swanson and seconded by Trustee Carolyn Swanson. We don't need to do a roll call vote if we're all here, right? Does that change or we'll do it
Well, we
still?
posted it as a roll call, so we have to.
So we'll do it all the way through. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson.
Aye.
Trustee Rivera.
Aye.
Trustee Pav.
Aye.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Aye.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to now move to closed session and we will be identifying the following session topics. There will be negotiations for PGTA and CSEA and some planning and preparation for meet and confer admin, classified confidential and adult school. There'll also be a discussion regarding a conference with labor negotiators. And also we will be talking about the superintendent mid-year evaluation check-in. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, we are now adjourned to move into that. We're going to reconvene now in open session for April 7th, 2022. And I'm going to report out, please, on action taken. There was discussion on negotiations for collective bargaining sessions for both PGTA and CSEA. There was also planning and preparation for meet and confer admin, classified confidential and adult school. There was also some discussion regarding labor negotiations for our assistant superintendent and the superintendent as well. And then the latter part of our meeting was on our mid-year evaluation check-in for our superintendent. And information was received, direction was given. No action was taken this evening. All right. So we'll go ahead now, please, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Carolyn, can you lead us tonight, please? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we'll start, please, with communications, and I'll appreciate help filling in. We got a letter from a parent regarding reassignment of a student at Forest Grove. We also got another letter from a parent who was concerned about PG middle school dance and conflicting with athletic performances. We received several regarding temperatures in classrooms, very, very cold, very, very hot. And we're excited to say that there's some action happening very soon on that. So hopefully that will create a better learning environment. A letter on supporting our teachers for getting more money. And it was quite complimentary to all the great work. I also wanted to say at Monterey County Office of Ed School Board Association that I got a letter there where I represent the district, that the big award for outstanding contribution to the community is with the Monterey County Office of Ed, is for the food bank within Monterey County. 15 million pounds of food is given out. A lot of this is in other parts of the county where it's they really stressed how much it helps. We also got a nice letter on robotics with great film that got a little like bumper cars. I had a flashback to my youth. It got very exciting, balls flying everywhere. So that was absolutely wonderful. And a couple of letters on COVID, and also a parent/staff member who talked about junior college night and how fabulous it was, and was referred to as a complete education on college in that one night, which is the highest praise. Anything I'm missing?
I have a few, if
Okay.
I may. I got an email related to Measure D funds and their usage. I got an email about Pacific Grove Skate Park projects, new skate park in PG. I got an email about reconfiguring plans, the impacts of our masking policy, outdoor dining at the primary schools, and transportation related to the Central Coast section for the high school. That's it.
Yes, I forgot to mention the outdoor dining, so forgive me. Anybody else? Okay,
I did get one more, so the same as those mentioned previously. And in addition, just an interest in being from a community member, being interested in being nominated for the county's Special Education Local Plan Area Community Advisory Committee.
okay. Then we're going to go on from there. Written communication. Can we start with you?
Written or board member comments?
Let's call it board member. Let's change that and call it board member comments, because we've done written
Yeah,
communications.
we've done. I don't
Thank
have any-
you.
I've
Help
got
me.
nothing other than happy spring, everybody. It feels like we're in the home stretch, I think, at least. So let's push on. I'll keep my comments at that.
I want to thank Sally and Roby and basically the robotics coaches. That was a lot of fun to watch. It was neat to be at Salinas High for that last robotics competition. So I'm sorry, what did I say? Oh, pardon me.
You must be confused like I am.
Seaside.
It's an S
Seaside.
word.
Yeah, my bad. It's always pretty amazing to see what actually is possible in that short time frame in which they actually get to build a robot. Now, at this point, we're building on the same chassis as last year, so some of it's done. But this thing just took shot after shot, and they all went in, and that was pretty darn.
It's amazing.
I can't do that, so that was pretty darn cool. The other thing, just PG high school students are heading out late next week on vacation to have a concert at Carnegie Hall. So there are a number of students who have taken a task there to sing Mark Hayes' piece, which is pretty darn cool stuff. So I look forward to that as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rivera.
Thank you. I also want to brag about our robotics team. It was amazing. And I brought home a prize I wasn't supposed to bring home. So I owe these back to you. The goggles.
Staffed by board member, headline.
Yeah, I brought them here to bring them back. It was, and they did fairly well. Was it third out of 36? So these kids are doing amazing work. And anytime you guys have a chance to go visit Miss Richmond and Roby, sorry, I'm sure that they'll be pleased to have you. I'm also pleased that we're passing out the COVID test kits as kids go home. So they'll be ready to take those and make sure that they're healthy before coming back to school. Happy spring, everyone.
Great. Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. This weekend I could hear from my house the Pacific Grove Rotary's 52nd invitational track and field meet. And I just wanted to say thank you to the Rotary members and for all the volunteers that made that possible. It sounded like a very fun time for the youth who was there and maybe for the adults who were there too. There's a new podcast out from Lozano Smith related to tips on post-transition best practices after the districting passage, which we all just went through. So I'm actually going to listen to that this weekend. I think there are some little tidbits that we can apply to make sure that it's easy for the voters to understand kind of why that happened and make sure that everyone kind of realizes that change. And lastly, I had my gallbladder removed and I am really thankful that I was able to schedule that so I didn't have to miss a board meeting. So I'm really glad to be here tonight, but I'm a little bit slow physically. Hopefully mentally I'm just a regular amount. So thank you.
I've done the same. So congrats. I about fainted when I read Principal Lito Garcia's comment, 2 months left. I went, wait, this can't be right. And then I counted on my fingers and you're right. It's amazing where we are. The weather today sure makes it feel like graduation's around the corner. I wanted to thanks when we get the film. I wasn't there, but thank you for that stuff with the robotics. Also, like cultural proficiency to the group report outs from RHD where you talked about what was going on those days and what people were thinking. It's really helpful as a board to get to see that stuff. So thanks for that. Sadly, probably one of the most impactful things I've been through was the fentanyl town hall that took place in this room. It was, I don't know. I mean, I think I've been around forever and a day, but it was so profound. I can't tell you. Part of the reason it was so critical for me or any individual to hear it was that within the room, I think there were a grandparent, 3 parents who had lost children, and locally. And I know my son called me last week over at Los Altos High. They lost a kid to fentanyl. So it is out there and it's absolutely terrifying. And I appreciate the follow-up that we're doing as a district, because I just think we're headed down the rabbit hole. So thank you so much, Dr. Porras, for putting this on and helping us. And I hope whatever we can extrapolate that's age appropriate, that gets fed through to our, not just the kids, but the parents as well. Although I think age appropriate is not an issue for parents, but we need to get the message out there. And thank you for hosting that. It was incredible.
President
Please.
Dawson, can I ask just interject on that for a second? Too? Because
Absolutely.
during that, and I don't know where the right place to put it would be, one of the things that Barbara Martinez had mentioned was like she has the Narcan on a lanyard with her all the time,
Right.
which I thought was a great idea because of what the 2 doctors that had said too. It's like, I think one of the doctors had helped somebody that they just happened upon on the roadside who was suffering from an overdose. And so something to talk about in the future, but making sure that everybody has one. I took one home with me and it's going to be in the glove box of my car.
Right.
So
They talked about how time critical it is. Within 5 minutes, you can really make a big difference, and up to 8 minutes. At that point, the brain is, you're into a whole nother category. So that's why carrying it, having it near us is so important. Thanks for saying that. Okay, Superintendent Report, please.
Madam President, just a couple items. I also want to just express my appreciation in regard to community for attending the Fentanyl Town Hall. We had, gosh, I can't remember the total attendance at that point, but it was over 200 at one point, which was just fantastic.
Yes.
And also was touched deeply by the parents that were speaking of their personal experiences, and a couple of them coming all the way from Santa Cruz to attend here to be able to share their story. And I think it was really important. I do want to mention and appreciate the support from the police department. They always, as they always do for our schools, while they weren't physically present that evening, they were present on the town hall. And they're always ready to help us out and be as extremely supportive as possible. We did hear back from Drs. Grover and Close that they will be doing a presentation. I think also from Principal Garcia, they'll be doing a presentation at the high school up and coming soon, and at community high school, which is going to be great. Still trying to figure out what that presentation might look like for middle school and elementary. And I'll take their lead on that one, but there are some materials that are available. The pamphlets that they gave out are written at 5th grade reading level, so appropriate for students. I did try it out on a 5th grade student that I know, and he seemed to understand it pretty well. So that's a good thing. Also, there will be continued Narcan training for our staff as well as the community out there. Speaking of which, in the break newsletter that went out today early, there is a distribution that will be happening. I just forgetting the date now. I think it's April 27, I think it is, and at the Obermeyer Center. And but look on the break newsletter, it's listed there for you, and it's in the evening. And the Drs. Close and Grover will be there to do 15-minute at a time presentations, cycling through, so people can come when they're ready to come and get an education on that. And then they'll be distributing Narcan there as well. So all in all, I think it was a very successful event. Very grateful for our community sponsors and supporters, and we'll continue to work on that with our students and staff for sure. Being a Rotarian, I don't want to get fined, so I will say also thank you for mentioning the Rotary track meet. And Beth, please thank Rich. Richard does an amazing job with putting that thing together. And it's a beautiful event. Lots of schools from all over come, and it was very successful. It was great to see students out there participating. I think it brings a lot of credit to our school district and to our high school for them to come and be able to see our facilities and also participate in that kind of event. I think really, really well. So that was good as well. And finally, want to thank all of the staff again for just a really, don't use the term often, but a very phenomenal cultural proficiency training for our staff. The second of 3 for this year. All of our administrative team was there supporting their staff members that were present. We had about 32 people there, and also inclusive of the adult school. And just really a great curriculum that the staff are using for professional development. I want to be clear, that's not curriculum to be taught with kids in the classroom. It's for our staff. And just really great conversations, and really wonderful to hear the outcome of some of those conversations, the outpour of emotion, and how important it is to them. And I think the successful passage of our first African-American female Supreme Court Justice, that kind of event, is culturally important. And I think the kind of training that we're working with our staff is to recognize those moments. And while that is a very big historic moment, there are other moments like that occur in our district with our students and their families. And it's important for us to grab onto those and make them important for everyone. So anyway, it was really great. And I want to thank the administrative team for really just shining through and making it work well at the site. So that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you so much. Now we'll move on to PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items.
Hi, good evening, Sean Keller, principal at Robert Downe Elementary. Just want to give a public thank you to John Dominguez and Tammy Ward, who is our consultant with Park Planet, for coming out to the Robert Downe site, looking at a damaged slide that we had this week. And I didn't know that you could patch those things. So that was Tammy's recommendation. We're hoping that that can get fixed during spring break, but hopefully the recommendations are available during spring break. I also wanted to thank, speaking of Salinas High School, I just helped Chris Evans, who is a husband to one of our teachers, Michelle Evans. He partnered with us in a Pebble Beach grant. It actually was 2 years in the making because of all the prices of wood and materials going on with all the forest fires in California. We're finally able to spend the Pebble Beach grant from 2020 on new garden beds, and those were delivered the last few days by Chris. I don't know how he got them off his trailer by himself because I helped 2 of his students. Oh, he didn't. Oh, thank you to John Paff for helping take those off the trailer. Okay. But we took those in today. So I just want to thank Chris and his students from Salinas High School. Again, just a reminder that Sir Restaurant throughout the month of April is doing a fundraiser for Robert Downe. So get out to Sir Restaurant. And again, the owner is PGHS grad. So help out Charlie. Also, we have our site council when we come back from spring break, and we'll be working on our SIPSA at Robert Downe. And we're going to celebrate for the first time ever Purple Up Day, which is to recognize military children. And I've asked the Kiwanis Club to come out to do their pancake breakfast that they host for us as a district every year. And I think they'll be able to come out and support us. And the next day we will be celebrating Earth Day. So hopefully wear your green and blue on April 22nd. Thank you so much.
The purple update that same day. I'm sorry. I didn't catch that.
Sorry, Purple Up Day is the day before, April 21st.
Good evening, school board members. Buck Rogeman, the principal of Forest Grove. Just wanted to invite everybody to our little mini version of the butterfly parade, which is going to happen tomorrow morning on our minimum day. We're going to kind of walk through the track at Breaker Stadium, similar to what we've done in years past for a Halloween celebration. So we got a nice little event planned where families are going to get to see the students in the costumes that they would have been wearing that first Saturday in October. But since we weren't able to do it then, we're going to do a smaller version of it now. PTA is going to host a little coffee event before and after. So if you want to come down and get your morning blast, then you can do that then. Also want to thank the PTA. They came to the rescue at about 1:30 this afternoon and brought popsicles for every student in our school. And one of our first grade students was overheard saying, "This is the best day of school ever." So it went over very, very well. Thank you.
Clarifying question.
Yes.
What time is the butterfly?
Oh, it's going to be right at the start of the school day. So if you are there around 8:45, you will definitely not miss it. We probably won't hit the stadium until 9.
Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Any virtual? Okay, now we'll move on to individuals desiring to address the board. Public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific item prior to board action on each item. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment for each agenda item not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per agenda item. Pursuant to board policy 9323, speakers will be called sequentially until there is no speaker coming forward on the agenda item or the amount of time allocated on the agenda item has elapsed, whichever comes first. The meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. Please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place an item on a future agenda. Individuals wishing to address us. This feels like the day before a break and people are kind of tuckered out. You coming? Oh, you got me all excited.
Oh, you pulled one of those.
Oh, like it was the Academy Awards. You're getting ready to come up and get accolades. Okay. Consent. We'll move on to consent agenda.
Items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There is no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requires specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent agenda. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the Board of Trustees shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended.
Okay, so board, anything to add for this, for consent, anything to pull?
I'd like to pull item I for further discussion, please.
Okay, item I.
Which is approval of the updated 2022-25 educational technology plan.
All right, so I know another trustee had an interest in doing the same. Anything else on that? So we will, I will hear a motion for items A through H, please.
Motion to accept items A through H on consent. And
Second.
The, it was made, the recommendations made by trustee Path and seconded by Dr. Rivera. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Public comment?
Public comment. Okay, they were quiet before, but I'm sure they're coming now. Okay, but I'm going to keep asking because we care. All right, so we have the motion, the second roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Path,
aye.
trustee Brian Swanson,
Aye.
trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Dr. Porras, where would we like to move this? The approval of the updated, should it go, what are your thoughts?
Well,
Beginning?
typically we pull consent items to the end of action. However, you are welcome to discuss it now or whenever you like. You let me know what you'd like to do.
Okay, why don't we go ahead? Can we do it now?
Get it out of the way.
Sure. Where do
Okay.
you want? That's up to you.
So do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want to?
Go ahead. Well, I look at this and I say, this is I know we talked about this at the last meeting. There was a question that was brought forth on Measure A as compared to Measure D funds. And while I think that we are in a good spot here, I just want to make sure we're spending money appropriately as we go through. So in particular, are we let's use a different word. Are we rebuilding classrooms using Measure D funds that are really technology based at this point?
No, I would say a better characterization is maybe updating some of the,
Pardon me, is your mic on?
yes,
Okay, I think we need perhaps a bit more volume.
I would tend to think what's described in the plan is really, and you're referring specifically to the area 1 where we're talking about flex lab implementations
Yes.
at the elementary and middle school. I would say that as described, we're referencing Measure D only where it comes into play with regards to flooring or some of the wall finishing, maybe some cabinetry, but it's not I wouldn't characterize it as a reconstruction of a classroom. Anything
So-
that's attached to the,
so-
to the walls,
okay.
things like that.
So the broader question for me then is, if we are moving stuff in and out and we have to take wallboard down to put in tubes and cables and power, is that still technology funding? And we should be paying for that out of that pot of money. And I realize I'm really talking about colors of money here, right? Is that still part of the technology update if we have to do it that way? Or would we be doing this anyway? In which case you would say, well, if we put nothing in there, we would have to redo these walls. That's Measure D. That's just repair and capital improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a more accurate way to describe it. We consulted with former director of facilities on this very topic when we brought the concept of reconfiguring or updating a classroom and what would be needed to really to reach the vision that we've, I think, articulated in the plan. And his input was, well, flooring, whether it's carpet or linoleum, things like that, that's a facilities expense. So there will be funding for that, and it would not necessarily be a technology specific expense. And that's kind of the position that we took in the plan.
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Because you're really saying, well, are we doing it now because we have to do it now because of the technology? And you'd say, well, maybe that's Measure D, or are we doing it, we would have to do it anyway, whether or not we put any new stuff in there or not.
And Measure A
Song-
specifically does, the provisions written in Measure A are very specific with regards to what can be purchased. I don't think flooring would qualify.
Okay, I mean, Song, I guess I'd like your thought on that as well.
I think what Mr. Binder described makes sense. In the bond language, only to the extent we can is not really listing the tasks, but it was related to the infrastructure of the building. But one can argue that, well, if it is not listed part of the bond projects, the list that we have, the project list, but because of technology, we have, let's say, to rip out a wall to install, certain wiring, we probably have to look at it deeper. Is there, whether Measure D or there could be capital facilities fund that we have. We have two other sets of funds, deferred maintenance fund, if it's really necessary to carry out the function for technology. But so far, I think we are able to just work within the two measures.
Okay. Do we have any idea what the actual cost on that is estimated at?
Well, we included some figures in the plan that were approximate to what Mr. Kelly had mentioned to us that would likely cost to, say, redo a floor in a classroom or just put in cabinetry of some sort. Not talking about construction to the scale of tearing down walls, et cetera. At least not for elementary, and we haven't really scoped out what's going to take place at the middle school. We're still trying to identify the actual space.
Okay, thanks. That's where I needed to be. So.
Okay, other board questions? Carolyn?
Yeah, oh, I can't get this right. Thank you, Christy. So I've got a couple questions, Mr. Binder. Overall, I support the ed tech plan, so I just want to say that again out loud. But I also have questions about the flex learning labs. Mine is more about timing and also how these flex learning labs would be kind of implemented within our general curriculum. So timing wise, I have a little concern about that because if this is adding to our facilities list, we've all heard at the past several meetings how behind we are on those things. And I was checking on the Measure D projects plan and I don't see it in here. So I just want to make sure this project is not leapfrogging in front of something else, or if we're at the point where we have to plug it in and take something else off, because a lot of these that are existing projects on the Measure D plan are safety related. And so I'm not wanting to prioritize the flex learning lab above safety. And so that's my first question about timing and how we have involved the facilities department on the decision of implementing this for 2023, which is essentially right now. So I'll let you answer that. And then I have a second question.
Well, a lot of this was crafted prior to realizing some of the current challenges,
Sure.
specifically around facilities. So, and as we've stated in the plan, I think at least in the cover as well, there has to be some inherent wiggle room in there. And we recognize that there's things that are going to take priority. If the needs of the district change, well, the plan needs to change. It can't be set in concrete or in stone for that matter. And we recognize that a plan is just that. It's a plan. It's subject to change and adjust depending on the needs and the circumstances. We're confident that what we're talking about in terms of making these flex labs a reality, it's really not, we're not talking about large, sections of the calendar being consumed by this. We're talking about, laying new floor, ripping out and laying new floor. Things like that are usually subcontracted and can be scheduled depending on materials, I don't foresee this necessarily impacting the current staff in facilities per se. They'll likely coordinate, obviously, with myself included, but I don't think it's going to be something that they'll directly carry out in terms of like installing flooring and cabinetry install or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Although we do have to acknowledge that any additional project does take the bandwidth of that facilities department
Sure.
away
Yeah,
from others.
yeah, I definitely agree.
So at this time, is 2023 the estimated timeline for this project?
Well, we have some of this has been in place at Robert Downe. Robert Downe is probably, in C1 is probably the most approximate example of where we want this to go, minus the flexible furniture, minus some of the other amenities. So it is conceivable that we can finish Robert Downe and maybe start looking at what we can do at Forest Grove at the second half of 23. I think that is realistic. Again, not, depending on what we face between now and then, I think it is realistic to start making some moves in that direction.
Okay. And then the other part of my question, not related to timing, is I've had a couple people reach out and ask me to really describe the flex learning labs and like what is that going to look like for their students?
Sure.
So can you, and maybe this is an item that we want to bring back and highlight, because it sounds like tonight we're going to approve this plan. And so maybe I recognize that might be an item for future, just to really shine a light on this project. But this, for some reason, this is one that people have questions about.
Absolutely. And, I guess I would have to point to what it is we've been doing over the last few years, actually pre-COVID. With the fine work that Mr. Andrew Bradley has been doing with the computer science, STEM and robotics lessons that he's delivering to both elementary classes, elementary schools, and grade levels, all grade levels that he services with those types of enrichment programs. At any point, if you walk into one of his lessons, you will see a representation, I'd say a pretty good representation of what can be done in a space that's conducive to that type of project-based format. Now, we'd like to have these flex labs look and feel more like what the kids are doing, as opposed to the kids coming into a computer lab and we're having to push heavy furniture out of the way and make room for what it is Mr. Bradley's been trying to do. So I think it would facilitate a lot of what he's already doing and also widen it up to allow for teachers, grade level teachers, to come in with their classes and deliver the type of instruction that I think would be conducive to more project-based hands-on learning.
Can I come and see that classroom at Robert Downe and what Mr. Bradley is doing?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd love to see that.
We can schedule a time.
Thank
He
you.
was there, I think, this past week, Mr. Keller, is that right? I think he was.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And Ralph, if this is going to go on the Measure D projects plan, which it sounds like it's going to move that way, can we put this on the, can you let us know what agenda we're going to have, the kind of an update on the Measure D projects plan? Because it sounds like this and maybe some other things might be getting added or shifted.
I'll address that to our assistant superintendent, but we have an update that's going to be coming up soon. So
Yes. It's actually in the works. Most likely, probably the second board meeting in May.
Thank you. Thanks, Song. Thank you, Mr. Binder.
Okay, we have another question, please,
Just
from
following up on that.
Monsieur Path.
Thank you. On that Facilitron list, which we heard an enormous number, and I said really that number's probably pretty small, or much smaller than what it really stated. Where does that stand? Ballpark anyway.
I believe it's 91 and out of that 60 in the works just came in. So down for 400 something too. Almost reduced by almost 80%.
Checking the box. Thank you.
Is that your question?
That was it. That's
Okay,
where it stood.
public comment, please.
Erica Chavez, kindergarten teacher at Robert Downe. I just want to piggyback on these flex labs coming in. It would be really nice if built into the Measure A fund is funding to develop staff skills to utilize those plans. I heard a public member of the public last week talking about how these spaces get underutilized everywhere. Because yes, we have Mr. Bradley, but he's one man and that's 2 elementary schools. And if we can be trained on how to follow up and continue that learning, then those spaces would really be utilized to their full capacity. So I want that. I don't know where that goes on the agenda, or if it's Measure A, or if it's a CNI thing, but if it's just one room, and I know that Mr. Bradley would obviously have the design of it, but if there's some kind of like menu that we can then pull from and follow up so that we're using it constantly, not just when Mr. Bradley's on site. That would be great.
Very good point. Thank you.
CNI stands for.
Curriculum and instruction.
And Mr. Binder, is there some professional development related to the Flex Learning Labs in this plan already?
So we did mention the need for further training under some of the actions and services. You'll notice there are a couple of points throughout the entire area one that mentions supporting teachers and providing additional training. Funding for that, obviously, that's going to be another topic, another discussion. But I do work closely with Director Silva on professional development funding sources, and we plan that. Actually, we spoke just a couple of weeks ago about next year, but we do this pretty much annually, and that kind of factors into what Ms. Chavez was just referring to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. One question, virtual, please. Ms. McNary?
Hi, good evening. I think Erica Chavez brings up a really good point on the training and usage for the rooms. My question was just related to the sites, and I heard that Robert Downe already has some of the components of the Flex Learning Lab. I'm just wondering why that site got started first.
Okay, I'm going to defer to Mr. Keller on that one. Thank you.
Again, Sean Keller, principal at Robert Downe. Again, when I joined Robert Downe, I want to say that Stephanie Payon and Andrew Bradley, since Andrew Bradley was the computer tech at the site, had already started a huge STEM build, no pun intended, at the site itself. They had a STEM club. They had it downstairs before Stephanie sailed around the world. And then Andrew, that next year, my first year, became the digital learning teacher for the district. And we were very fortunate in that we had some parents donate a lot of items, and we're talking just storage items, not STEM or computer items. But they gave us a bunch of storage that we could put in there. And with just the leadership of Stephanie Payon and Andrew Bradley over the years, we've been able to build our own STEM lab. And, you know, with the help of also Daniel Schwartz, who was the computer tech for a while, and now with the leadership of Manuel Villagomez, by the way, who's excellent and the staff just adores. You know, I know for myself, I'm a STEM parent. My kids were into robotics. I want to support it. We did Lego robotics pre-pandemic. We're trying to do the best we can right now with Lego robotics. I eagerly asked the students from CSUMB who are computer science majors to come in and help us out. They're currently doing that. We have a great parent in Jeannie Kerr who's helping out with Legos right now. And yeah, so it's just kind of just homegrown. Okay. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Any others? Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Binder.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do another quick question so we can get into action discussion, please. Ms. McNary?
Thanks. I guess my question was more as to the facilities piece versus what Mr. Keller was discussing.
Yeah, from my recollection, those were newly installed portables. And so they, by that very fact, they came pretty well equipped with a lot of the more updated features. So there's, in a sense, less updating to do in those compared to Forest Grove space.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move forward, please, to action discussion, and we'll start off with the district. Oh my gosh, yeah, we need a vote. All right, well, I got the public comment, and let's have a motion for this item, please.
Make a motion to approve the updated 2022-2025 educational technology plan.
I'll make a friendly amendment to that, John, to just approve it, but then add in goal number 1 in the Flex Learning Labs, just to specifically call out professional development to make sure that we're maximizing those class spaces.
Where are you?
On page 56.
Sure, I'll take that addition.
You repeat, if you would, please repeat what your amendment was.
Sure, just to add to, on page 56, under goal 1, implementation 1 of Flex Learning Labs, to specifically call out that the district's going to invest in professional development for site staff. Make sure that those are maximized.
Okay, motion was made by trustee John Paff and with an amendment from trustee Carolyn Swanson. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee John Paff,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson. Aye. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next, we will go to the COVID update, please.
Thank you, Madam President. A few items for you. Also, again, because the break was published early and it's already out, some of those updates are already listed in the break for folks out in the community. But I'll go ahead and go over some of the items again for this meeting. I think a couple of, I also wanted to just note that this update was provided by Nurse Powley, and then I just added a few other items, but again, as always, just want to acknowledge her work behind the scenes. First off, great news, obviously. The pool testing results for the week of April 4th through the 8th were all negative. And Forest Grove and the high school will be available tomorrow, which is great. The Monterey County Health Department did release their update, their COVID update for the board. This is what it looks like. If you've seen a copy of this, we also have a copy that's been put out onto the website. And I think there's some really great reasons to continue celebrating as the county numbers continue to go down. And I think this is also why we're seeing, or why we have seen a change in the guidelines from the County Department of Public Health. I'll get to those in a moment. But as far as the most current case numbers, from March 28th, we're looking at case positivity of 2.2, and as of April 4th, it's now down to 1.5. March 28th on the case rate was 5.9, on the 4th, 4.4, obviously again decreasing, and the hospitalizations are decreasing from last week to 8 people. So obviously, and the vaccination rates are increasing. So we're seeing people continue to get vaccinated and the case numbers to go down. It is worth noting that at this moment that we have worked with the Monterey Fire Department. We'll be hosting a vaccine clinic when we return after the spring break, a week or two after. They will make that available. And as you may have already heard, the California Department of Public Health has also opened up guidance to recommend a second booster shot for those folks who are 50 years and older and are not immunocompromised. However, if you are, you can still go to your doctor and get a recommendation. They are advising that those individuals do so. So that's good news, and we'll continue to offer those clinics as we can. We are also distributing, as we had mentioned previously, the COVID take-home tests prior to the break so that students and families can use them prior to their return to school. And as always, if a positive test is indicated, to please keep your child at home and to follow through with the doctor in regards to the follow-up tests. So that will be made available. And it's also noteworthy that the Monterey County Office of Education continues to provide for more tests as they get them, and they did so again. And we've distributed those additional tests to the school sites, as well as the preschool classroom and state preschools. If any families out there are in need of an additional test, please contact school offices to get access to those. And also just to reiterate that if there's a need at the school for a test there at the school site, that we have those tests available. The OptumServe continues at the district office, and we are renewing the contract to continue their service through the summer and potentially into the fall. So we will continue to see them working here. That's all why all those boxes are always in the back of the boardroom. They are scheduled to continue here 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. There's a break that's scheduled for their folks to get lunch. OptumServe is also rolling out a rapid testing program here as well. So they'll continue to offer the PCR testing, but there will be then the PCR and antigen rapid testings now available. So we are upping the game here at Pacific Grove. I told you about the additional booster that's available now. And then probably noteworthy, the California Department of Public Health issued on April the 6th, their new guidelines. I'm going to just preface this by saying it's pretty clear, as they did indicate previously, that they are working very hard to go back to as much normalized programs for schools as possible. I think that they're taking advantage of the reduced numbers to help try to ease the burden on some of the restrictions at the sites. As of the update, the modifying quarantine process is now completely phased out. We mentioned the last time that they were getting towards that. That is now completely out of the guidelines. I will note that we will be editing our COVID safety plan to reflect these new guidelines as well. And also that the board took local action to require masks in the case of a positive case. Our local guideline does not get phased out. That's still in place. However, we are going to be including what the guidelines from the CDPH include. So all close contacts are permitted at this point to remain in school and participate in extracurricular activities unless they develop symptoms or test positive for COVID-19. As always, they are strongly recommending that close contacts wear masks indoors, and close contacts should be tested for COVID-19 3 to 5 days after exposure, regardless of the vaccine status. These parts are not necessarily new. And then all individuals who develop illness symptoms, regardless of status, should stay home, receive COVID testing, and follow the health guidelines in regards to we're coming back to school. So those will be posted on our COVID safety plan, as I mentioned, so folks can take a look at that. And I was asked a couple of meetings ago if there was any recommendation in regards to what the board might want to consider in regards to what happens if the case numbers go up, and should we consider remasking at the school district? I did work with Nurse Powley on this. I will say we have language put together that addresses this issue if the board would like to move that way. And the language simply reiterates what I've just spoken to in regards to what we're seeing for the trending numbers, a reiteration of the mitigation programs that we already have in place that include optimized air quality, our vaccine clinics, our self-tests, providing masks for anyone who needs them, so on and so forth. And then based on the new masking guidelines and the local guideline that the board here put into place, and using the CDC and the CDPH guidelines, we could recommend certainly that if the board would like to, if the community levels indicate that our case numbers move out of the low category and move above 10% or 10, then we would strongly move forward towards remasking until then the board can say mandates remasking, because you can go more restrictive, you just can't get more liberal. And then maintain that masking until the district positivity rate goes below that 10. So essentially, the easiest way to consider it is if we move out of the low category in our PG area, that the board could consider putting mask restrictions back into place, and whatever degree the board would like to do so. And I know that Dr. Pelk and a number of other families have asked for the board to consider this. Yes, the staff has been working on it. I will make a notation that I brought this up at the county superintendent meetings just for comparison. At this point, there are no other districts that are moving forward with any other restrictions besides what the CDPH has put forward. So I don't have any really templates to work off of other than what I've spoken to you about tonight. And so the board can decide what the board would like to do. you certainly can take action on that this evening, or you can wait till the 21st or whatever meeting. If you'd like to schedule a special meeting to also do that, you can do that. And I think that's all I have, other than to thank all of our staff, once again, our classroom teachers and our classified folks for really just doing just an amazing job through all of this, working with students, working with the families, mitigating problems, and just being there. And there's just no one solution to all of this. And so often our principals or teachers or classified staff have to address a particular family's need, and they just do a really great job of doing the best they can to meet that need. So it's just deeply appreciated. So that's all we got.
Thank you so much. Board comments now, please.
I just want to thank you and Ms. Powley for the continued updates. It's nice to just get them. We never have to ask for them. I'm sure I and everybody else love the direction that we're going. I'm not in favor of changing anything or adding anything right now, restriction wise, just because we have another meeting in a couple of weeks. I think we have some elasticity there to react, and we can always call an emergency meeting if we need to move forward on something. So as far as doing anything right now tonight, I think we're okay.
Okay. Trustee Paff?
Alf, what you said 10% changes you from low to something else, right?
Yes, goes to moderate.
10% what? 10% positivity?
It's positivity, yes.
So we're at 1.7% positivity. So here's what we buy, Brian, and whomever. If things go south while we're not here on Monday, if we have a 10% positivity rate, which I can't believe we'll have, but stranger things have happened. You're already set. You've already said, okay, at that point, we're just gonna please put masks on until we meet again. And the question really for me is, what's the number? Is 10% a rational number? 5% isn't, particularly when Monterey County is so lousy at reporting. You see a spike after every weekend. Well, it's because nobody reported Saturday, Sunday. So I think that it's not too much of a stretch for me to say, okay, if we put in a value that we believe in, whatever that is, we have it in place, for coming back. So I guess that's what it's worth, maybe.
Coming back, I'm sorry, just coming back to restriction?
Well, coming back after a break, coming back after, well, we don't have any other breaks or long weekends after that, right? It's April and then May 31st.
That's right.
So it's only the one. It would just be in place.
So you would vote to put it in place?
And the difference between 2% and 10% is big enough that if we get 10% and we haven't had the opportunity to take action, we're probably in trouble anyway, right? That's a pretty big jump. So 10% to me seems like we could do that. It's very safe. It does give us time, and it's really only if something cataclysmic, somebody has a 400-person wedding with no masks and 10 cases, which is what happens. So.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. I'm in favor of kind of having this trigger point of 10 to anything above 10, actually. That puts us in the moderate zone. We've got spring break coming, and I do appreciate the rapid test for all the families. However, we also have Easter coming, which is a notoriously popular holiday for families to get together and indoors without masks on from a variety of households. And I can't see any harm in being proactive on this and just having it out there and communicating it to the public and having it ready.
Dr. Rivera?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it as well, getting up to 10%. Because Pacific Grove we're here stuck in, I always feel like it increases faster around us and then we come up. So if we've hit that 10% positivity rate, then communities around us are probably above that.
Okay, and I would concur with that too. So I would say the direction we would give would be that we would have in place. And that's what we'll hear from now. So we'd like to hear from the public. Oh, one more, yeah.
I do actually, because are we talking about Pacific Grove or are we talking about Monterey County?
Right. You need to,
And I would say Pacific
Oh.
Grove is where I want to be for that rate.
if I
think
may,
that's things.
you have data right now for Pacific Grove Unified, Pacific Grove, the city, or go into the county. The new website breaks that down and you just needed to dive into here to see those numbers. So I think if you're going to wish to make a
Yeah, we
motion,
need to-
I would be very specific in what number you're looking for so that we know what number to follow.
Okay, public comment? Dr. Pelk, please.
Yes, thank you so much. So first, I just want to thank you so much for bringing up this topic of conversation, and thank you for the suggestion to put in a proposal to reinstate mask mandates if we do move out of the low CDC tier. Of course, as you know, I strongly support that. I'm really grateful that members of the board support that as well. I think in terms of whether we do this now or later, I think communication and preparation are always better. It's much better from the perspective of parents. And I mean, even the perspective, especially the perspective, I think, of the parents who might be unhappy with a return to masking. It's better to know that it's coming rather than to have that happen without warning. That was certainly my feeling when things changed in the other direction. And I think it also helps us to be able to, move as quickly as possible, which is really key in terms of effectively reacting to a surge if another surge does happen. Just as a point of clarification, I think we should just carefully revisit the guidelines themselves. My understanding is the COVID-19 community levels, which CDC is now using, are not based on positivity anymore. That's a combination of case rates and hospitalization rates, and the 10, I think, is the threshold for hospitalizations per 100,000 population in 7 days. Obviously, that can be discussed offline, but I just wanted to mention that. And I can send a link like in the chat or something if that's helpful. But I had, on a related note, just something I wanted to bring up. I know of several places around the country right now that have had, that had earlier spring breaks than we do, and that saw post spring break surges in schools when the kids came back from traveling. In fact, that affected a family that I know personally. It's been very difficult for them because they do have a high risk family member and had tried to be very careful. And so I just wanted to suggest that we can consider some extra measures just for that week back from spring break. And I very much appreciate the tests being handed out again. I think that's great. I also think we should consider reinstating masking for that week. And also there is some precedent for doing that, which I sent in an email. And also consider making the rapid testing actually a requirement and just asking that parents be required to report back that their kids were tested and did test negative, on Monday morning after spring break. So that's something, I just hope that we can consider given the possibility of spring break travel itself causing a surge, particularly because about half the states in the US right now actually are seeing increases in cases again. And finally, just as a note to the board, last week I attended the White House Office of Science and Technology Policies webinar on the White House's new Clean Air and Buildings Challenge. It was incredibly informative. They focused a lot on ventilation and filtration in schools as well as other buildings. And they provided a recording and transcript and a toolkit for schools to help find guidance and funding sources to upgrade ventilation and filtration. And so I'm happy to pass all that information on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pelk. Any other comments? One other, please. Catherine, please. Are you muted? Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much. So do we have a motion that would?
I think you need to define it a little bit more.
Well, my motion would be, so I can't tell parents they have to test before they come back. I don't think that that's a reasonable, whether or not it's reasonable or not, I don't think we can do that. So I appreciate Dr. Pelk's comments. I also don't want to mandate masks immediately coming in the door. So I would make a motion that if we see a positivity change based on whatever the metric the county is currently publishing for the city of Pacific Grove, that we reinstate a mandate at 10%.
Is there, and until it falls below 10%?
Well, we'll have to debate that at that time, but yeah.
Well, if
Well,
we,
we can have that.
if
you
we
could-
don't
you could add
decide
it,
now,
you're right,
it would
you're
be
right.
Yeah.
indefinite, so.
Okay.
So until it falls below 10%
Positivity.
Positivity. I just
Yeah,
wanna make
whatever
sure.
that,
for the city of Pacific
for
Grove
the city of Pacific
until
Grove.
it falls below 10%.
Yep.
And I would second that.
Okay, a motion was made by trustee Paff, seconded by trustee Brian Swanson. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Madam President, do you want to take any public comment on that motion?
Yeah, oh, okay. Public comment on that motion.
I have a board comment on that motion.
Okay,
I just want to clarify the metrics that you're using, John. So you okay with, can we do that? Yeah.
That metric is what I'm using for the city of Pacific Grove. That's what I'm,
Okay, and so so I'm looking here, so the CDC COVID-19 data tracker, it considers a shift from low, which we're in now, to moderate at 10 to 49.99 per 100,000 and between 5 to 7.99% positivity. So if we do the 10% positivity, then that's actually in the realm of the high for the CDC. Am I reading that correctly, Ralph?
The moderate range runs from 10 to 49.99.
Yeah, and if you look at the rest of that sentence, and between 5 to 7.99 of positive tests per week.
Positive NAT COVID tests per week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So if our goal is to make it so that we engage this when we bump from low to moderate, then I would just want to be clear that we're talking about those metrics in that moderate line.
I'm
Is that what you,
confused.
Where
is
are
that
you
what
on
you
that,
were
Ralph?
looking?
I think that I'm sorry, excuse me. In the email that I sent you and then what's in the break, it notes that according to CDC COVID-19 data tracker, the breakdown of community levels are, it starts with low at less than 10, so consider 9.99999 and infinitum, and less than 5% NAT tests. And that's the national test,
The positivity.
right, of
rate.
positivity, right?
Yeah. And so then moderate is 10, and this is the email that he sent us. I don't know if you
Right.
guys printed it out and brought it. Yeah.
Right.
So I just want to clarify that metric, because I would be in favor of engaging this when we shift from low to moderate. And I think that's, John, what the spirit of what you were saying was.
10% or the second number?
well, we're coming back to Ralph. How do you define moderate, right? What is moderate here?
That's what I'm going off of. The community levels are 10 to 49.99 and between 5 and 7.99 of positive COVID tests per week. So if you from the way I'm reading it, if you stay at that 10, so if it's above 10, that's when you trigger and you can use that threshold when you come back below it. That's what was recommended by Nurse Pally as well.
So you're going into the moderate, and when you say 10, you're actually not saying 10% positivity rate. You're saying between 10 and 49.99 per 100,000 and between 5 and 7.99% positivity.
That's going into the moderate. Yeah, well, the moderate, if you're in moderate range, that's what would trigger the master.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So moderate for the city of Pacific Grove, based on those criteria.
Based on those
Yes,
metrics.
but just to be clear, we're not saying 10% positivity rate. We're
correct.
saying on this. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
we're
you.
using what trustee Paff was saying, to use the metrics that are noted here. So I can list it specifically, the CDC metrics that are posted, and we can use that particular language. So it makes it very clear.
And Ralph,
Perfect.
it's an and, not an or, right?
It's an and on the
And
sheet.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Carol.
Okay, so we have clarity now. We can go ahead. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a vote, please? Roll call. Trustee Dawson?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to make sure the language is clear.
Trustee?
Remains, I want to say, trustee Path, and if you see change in the city of Pacific Grove metric above, do you want to say at moderate or above?
Yes. Name that website.
Yeah. I'm sorry, taking a moment. I want to make sure I got it clear.
Yeah, it's a little complicated.
So the CDC COVID tracker. Got it. And again, it's been already noted for the public to see, but I just want to make sure that I'm getting it clear.
And then Ralph, just for your wording also, do we need to give a parameter like they used to have where once that metric is met, then does it happen the following day or the following week or?
We didn't define the return back. So do you want to go back into low, the return back?
Yes.
I
After a
think
week?
Carolyn's question was if that happens on a
Next
Monday
day.
morning, Tuesday is the day it starts.
Yes.
It would be the following day.
Following
Okay.
day.
And then it would also untrigger itself the
right?
following day.
Same way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The mask restriction. Be removed. I'm just reading it aloud so it's clear that what I'm saying removed. One day after,
The following day?
following day, moving into low. Yes,
Yes.
all right.
I have confidence we're not going to hit it, so it's good.
I would imagine not, but I want to
Fingers
make sure. I got it.
crossed. Heck, yeah.
Very good. Okay, if you're ready for roll call vote. Madam
We sure are.
Thank you. Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee John Paff,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson,
Aye.
trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll now move forward, please, to resolution number 1089 for the issuance and sale of 2014 election Measure A Series D of the Education Technology Bond.
Thank you. I believe our financial advisor, Mrs. Dale Scott, is actually joining us, but let me just introduce it real quickly. This is the fourth series, Measure A, Series D. The Measure A authorization allows for 6 issuance throughout the life of the bond, 18 years. This is a 4th round and is for a net amount about $2 million as well. Just really quickly before we talk into details of this issuance, currently from Measure C, we still have about $1 million. And Mr. Scott can explain why we should supersede. If we go with $330,000 per semester is about 600,000. Technically, we have a year, but then we have a debt schedule. We have a plan to follow. But in terms of this series, it's noted in the board cover. It's about a little bit over $2 million, but then the net proceeds is $2 million. Cost of issuance estimated about $133,000, and is a direct placement rather than public sale. And Mr. Scott did analysis. Is slightly a bit of a savings to do direct placement. And we got 9 bids out of this direct placement. And the winner was actually Webster Bank is the second lowest. And there's a reason, but the net savings for us is actually the highest. Therefore, we went with that. And I think that's it. I'll leave that to Mr. Scott if the board has questions. And Dale, do you have anything to add?
I do not, and that was a very good summary. I have a very short presentation if you would like me to run through it, but it covers a lot of the information that Song just gave you. But I am happy to give you some of the details on that. It's about 3 or 4 slides, but I will leave that up to the board.
I would like to see it.
Very good.
Please proceed.
Okay. I have to find it first. Thought I had it. As Song mentioned, Measure A, which was passed by the voters in 2014, was structured as a technology bond. And you can see with the graphic on the left-hand side, the tax rates for other measures that the voters have passed, estimated tax rates are in gray. And the blue and light blue and dark blue are the issues that are currently being paid off and proposed to be paid off. The district has already issued 2 measures, one in 15 and one in 16. This will be the third. I'm sorry, they've issued 3 measures. This will be the 4th in 222. And then it's projected, although it'll be obviously up to the board how to proceed, that there will be 3 more measures totaling the entire $18 million. These bonds are structured, because they're technology, they are structured for a 3 to 4 year repayment that matches the useful life of the technology being financed. Although this is not in front of the board today, I just wanted to point out that you have also a second bond measure that also has remaining authorization. That was measure D that was passed by the voters in 2020. The district has issued $6 million. These are longer term bonds. We have a projection to be issuing another series in 2023. But again, that will be up for the final determination of the board. And that should last the district through about 2027. As Song mentioned, we took a number of bids. You can see them on the left-hand side. These are what it's called a direct placement. What that means is that the bonds are not being sold to an underwriter who then turns around and sells them to investors, but they're being sold directly to a bank in this case. That cuts down the cost of the rating, it cuts down the cost of the underwriting, it cuts down the cost of the legal fees, and it's appropriate for a measure or for a financing such as this that has a very short repayment period and is of a smaller size. As Song mentioned, we received a number of bids, and even though they're on the left-hand side, you can see them ranked by the terms of the interest rate that was bid. But when we calculated not only the interest rates, but some of the associated costs that come with the various proposals, we found that actually Webster Bank, even though they had a slightly higher interest rate, had the lowest total cost of debt service. And so we recommended that it be awarded to Webster Bank. It's a marginal amount, about $4,000 difference, but still it is the cheapest one. Assuming the board takes action tonight in favor of this resolution, then we will be closing this transaction at the end of the month, and funds will be available for the district near the end of April, on April 28th. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Okay, let's begin. Trustee Carolyn, questions?
I don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Rivera,
No questions. Thank you.
trustee Paff,
Thank you. Dale, we're getting 2.1, the interest is 1.94, that comes out to about 2.8 times 7, that's about 18 million. Am I calculating that right? Over 7 A, B, C, D, if G is 7 actually. Does that work out?
I think
Why
you
it's an
did
18
that
million.
right. Let me pull that back up. There we go. Yes, 18 million.
Okay, and bond rates, what's your crystal ball tell you right now about?
My crystal ball broke in the last couple of months. Yes, rates, let's be realistic. Rates were at extraordinarily, probably unrealistically low numbers, levels for a number of years, really the last 3 or 4 years. The combination of factors, there's really 3 things going on in my mind. There's just the general inflationary supply chain problems and wage problems. There's a energy problem associated with the war. And then there's also, and it's a piece that gets lost, there's also tax day coming up. And tax day is traditionally a time when people are pulling money out of bond funds and out of the bank and using it to pay their taxes. And there's a little spike in the interest rates. I don't think that's a big piece of it. I think these rates are with us for a while and may continue to creep up until they level off again. So again, these are very short-term securities. I think the rates are going to remain in those lower levels, but that kind of rates that we saw in the previous transactions where we're looking at 0.4% and 0.3%, I think that might be a while before that comes back.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Trustee Swanson?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to thank Dale and all of his associates who put this stuff together. You know, there's a temptation when we go through these sometimes because for some as board members, we've seen it, you know, 5, 6, 10, 12 times or whatever. But for the people that are tuning in for the first time, I think it's important that they get a brief summary of what it is that we're doing and how that it works, because it can be a little mind-boggling at times. And I think in 4 quick slides, you did a great explanation of just, you know, what it is we do, a thumbnail sketch and how that all works. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to concur with that, and especially for the community to be, for us to show the gratitude and where we are at this time, because without their support, I don't know. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go to public comment, please. Okay, we have none at this time. So do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 1089 for the issuance and sale of 2014 election measure A Series D of the Education Technology Bond.
Second.
Motion was made by trustee Brian Swanson and seconded by Dr. Rivera. May I have a vote, please?
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee John Paff,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson, trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Hi.
Motion carries. Next, we move to ratification of Pacific Grove High School instrumental music field trip.
Madam President, the item is, as presented, has the information necessary. If you require a presentation, we certainly can do so, but otherwise it's there for you.
I would just, I think we're approving afterwards. So my only question is, I was just a little, how did that happen? I think that happens sometimes. I just don't know what happened. I'm just curious.
Lito Garcia, excuse me, Principal, Pacific Grove High School. I haven't looked at the packet. Can you remind me what
It
trip
took
this
place.
is, referring to, please? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. It's the board ratification of the RHD field trip that took place
Yes.
March 25th and 6th.
Yes. So there was some misinformation and some miscommunication regarding this particular event. And we have worked with Dr. Warren, our instrumental music teacher, to correct that. And going forward, next school year and beyond, we'll be in, we can ensure that we will have all this paperwork done prior to the actual event.
Thank you. Any other comments? Because that answered mine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the bad was that we were doing it after the fact. The good is that we're going on band field trips again. So I'm thrilled about that.
Right.
And that, and I know a few months ago, there was concern about, are we doing CCS? What's happening with that? And I think I see one later here too for PG Middle, which is also an after the fact approval, but I'm thrilled that we're doing these things again, and that kids are getting on buses and seeing other kids and integrating and playing music together. So that's all.
Silver linings. Thank you.
Yes, and just to give some accolades to Dr. Warren, he has done an incredible job with our students. We're very happy to have him on staff, and the program got invited to perform at Laguna Seca at a race. And so we will be out on the track before they start racing. To perform. So just, another great opportunity for our kids.
Do you have any idea how they actually did rating wise? Did you hear back?
I did not.
Okay, maybe I'll shoot a note off to Dr. Warren and see. It's always nice to hear. They usually do really well. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Any public comment? Seeing,
I have a board comment.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
No problem. Mr. Garcia. This, I believe, is the second time we've had kind of a scramble for related to music field trips. And
Yes, it is.
scrambles make me nervous for the safety of our kids. So I want to say that out loud. And I also want to acknowledge that I hear that you're saying that's not going to happen again. And I look forward to that record beginning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I move that for ratification of Pacific Grove High School instrumental music field trip.
Second.
The motion was made by trustee Christy Dawson and seconded by John Paff. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Path,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson. Aye. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Hi.
Next, we'll move on to Robert Downe Elementary engraved brick fundraiser for the Jen Hinton Field. It's showtime, and I think he might have stepped out for one moment.
Well, this is straightforward. We can probably read it.
Okay,
unless
well,
there's
he
real
might
questions.
have some special
I
words.
know he might, but,
Okay,
or we could say, we're putting bricks as we come up the stairs. They're not actually 4 feet by 8 feet. They're 4 inches by 8 inches.
but they
and
said
8
it's more money for the bigger brick.
It's still not 8 foot by 8 foot.
Oh, it said 8 foot?
It's a little
It's
typo, and
almost
I'm making,
very-
I'm
All
making
right,
fun.
we'll
I
talk that
apologize.
STEM guy
Stonehenge
knows the
esque.
difference
And,
between an
Sean,
inch and
Sean is
a
putting this
feet.
in honor of Jen Hinton,
books,
and that is very
bricks.
nice, and, the field has been named.
So
after
sorry.
him. So-
No worries. Someone was vamping and very happy with his comments.
Okay.
We're ready.
Sean Keller, proud principal at Robert Downe. We have been talking about placing some bricks at Robert Downe for many years. I mean, obviously, we're going to celebrate our centennial here in May of the building. We've been around since 1891. We've had lots of alumni. So what we're hoping is that we can generate some funding for our PTA. They have graciously, as I stated, agreed to collect the monies for this fundraiser. It's not that we're coming to the board to get an agreement for or approval of a fundraiser, because PTAs can do fundraisers on their own, but it's the installation of the bricks onto our property. And over the years, we've been trying to figure out where to place these bricks on the property. And after we had a girl fall on the stairs and have a significant injury, I thought it was time that we do something about the dirt that quite often goes onto the steps. And I was out there myself trying to blow because, maintenance, landscaping comes around once a week. They do a great job of cleaning it up, but the kids are kids and they drag their feet, and that's the main artery onto and from the field every single day. So just wanted to try to raise some funds and thought it was a twofer. You get some pride going into your school, and also we can protect the area. And let's hope we'll have a butterfly bazaar at Robert Downe next year, and we can make it safer, just in case it's a little wet in October before that event, and we'll make it safer for the community when people are there. So what it doesn't state is I talked to John Dominguez. He did visit our campus this week. Just wanted to get his 2 cents. He thinks it's a good idea. Also, we have a parent on, well, she's a parent. I was gonna say parent on staff, but that's not true. We have a parent who is a landscape designer, and she's going to help me design the area. And then John has a couple companies that he's going to recommend for the installation of the bricks. So, and I'm sure I'll come forward with or John or whomever at the time when we are ready to move forward with the plans. Because I'd like to have this fundraiser go on throughout the summer to try to get the word out to alumni that might be around the world. And also we'll have a big push around the good old days time.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm glad we got to hear all that information. Board member comments?
It's nothing not to love here.
Dr. Rivera,
Ditto what trustee Swanson said.
trustee
Yeah.
Caroline?
Yeah, thanks for bringing this forward in its infancy. It's kind of exciting. I'd like to sign myself up for a $50 brick, if that's okay. And
Absolutely.
And just to clarify, so this actually doesn't have any money coming from the district. This is all paid for and fundraised by even the installation, the bricks and the installation by your PTA and your site.
Yeah, again, I can hope we can afford the the landscaper or the company that'll come in to install. I was hoping, we'd have a parent that has a company. But again, it will depend on what you approve for the installation. And again, we've been very lucky in the district where parents will come forward if they have a construction company or what have you. So I think once we get to that point and I put the plea out there, who knows, but if we need to just make sure that everything is, above everything and we have liability coverage for a company coming in to install, I think it's a safe thing to do.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So as you're mentioning, this will be ongoing and could take a bit of time, but for this evening, the action taken will be that we're just saying, go for it.
Yeah, just again, just with the idea that once we do collect the monies and we purchase the bricks, that we can move forward with getting a contract. However, the district, getting bids and what have you, that process is approved. We can move forward with that and then come to you later with the approval of the company and then have them installed.
Okay, sounds good. Again, what's not to love, right? And no kicking up dirt. It creates a lot of pride and it allows a community and alumni to thank you. So that's nice. Any public comment at this time?
Sorry.
Beth Shamas. It sounds like a really nice project. We do have policy regarding different kinds of projects that go on at different sites. So you might want to look at that just to see that that's kind of being followed. And yeah, because we've had in the past parents who volunteer and they do this or that, and then things don't work out or things have to be torn out. So just to be aware of that, he said he was going to be bringing it back, which is good. Because nowadays we really got to be careful about whatever we do. I don't know, does this have steps at all?
No.
Okay, so it's
Steps
just
are
flat.
there. We hope to make it flatter.
Okay. Okay, just so that we don't run into any problems with any kind of ADA issues or anything like that.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Any other public comments at this time? Okay, do I have a motion?
Also move.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by trustee Brian Swanson and seconded by Dr. Frank Rivera. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Path,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson, aye, trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Hi.
Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.
We're excited to see this as it unfolds. Next, we will be looking at the 2022-23 school calendar and the 2023 and 24 school calendar. It's a 2-year model and we'll hear from Billy Mankey.
Ready? Does that sound good?
A little closer.
Okay, how about that? Okay, good evening, Billy Mankey, HR Director for the district. And tonight, as was stated, we're representing the 22-23 and 23-24 school calendars. And just a little background on this is that it's done through committee. The committee consists of 2 administrators, 2 PGTA representatives and 2 CSEA representatives, so that everyone has a voice. Then what we typically do is once we get the calendars down to, a couple for each year that we're representing, we send those out to the employees and they get to vote on it and tell us what they like, what they don't like, and so that we can go back again and try to meet the needs of most people. We aren't always obviously able to do that. We have different constraints. So, but we do our best. And then, and this year we went back out a second time to get additional comments after we had brought it down to 1 calendar for each year. As the item states, we had PGTA represented 50.5%, CSEA 35.2%, and then non-represented was 14.3%. That's out of 105 total employees that gave input. So each calendar as listed tries to meet the needs and create appropriate breaks at times that are good both for students learning and for staff. The school year staff likes to have that start at least in August and not in July. We had a couple of years where we started at end of July, and we're moving away from that in these two calendars. And then you'll see that we have the typical not butterfly, but the fall break, and staff like to have the fall break a week after the butterfly parade. We try to balance the semesters for educational purposes, so students can have all of their curriculum done for the first semester prior to winter break, and actually have a rest and not worry about finals, and then come back after that ready to learn again. So do you have any questions?
Well, we'll
There's
find
a lot
out.
to this. when
We'll
we
find
get
out right
into it.
now.
Okay.
But thank you so much. Dr. Rivera, questions?
No questions.
Trustee Paff?
Well, I'm kind of wondering why we're not looking at the same 2023 as we did 2017, 2018. It's the same start, same days, same calendar, and yet somehow we magically moved out a week.
I can tell you that we honestly didn't pull calendars from that far back.
Okay. I mean, they do recycle every 7 years, right? So give or
Yeah,
take.
yeah.
Well, as I have for the last 8 years, we start too soon. And we could easily rearrange this to end at the same time and start at least a solid week, if not 2 weeks later, actually, with. I appreciate the work.
Reducing some of the breaks.
Yes. So. And I get that teachers want that week. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's a 2-year plan, right? So we're ratifying both today is what you're asking
Yes,
for.
please.
Trustee Brian?
Yes. You know, I'm glad that it stopped my school calendar when I was going to school, because it's like if you're a student, you get 2 months off. You're really getting ripped off as a student. And I think as a teacher too, honestly, but it's not mine anymore. And, you know. Yeah, and so and we had like 3 months off. You get 2, but again, I don't have to go to school anymore. And I wish there was greater participation, but when it comes to what our job is here, part of our job is what we're not supposed to do, or we're not supposed to micromanage. You guys figured it out, and you came to a conclusion. So. If it was entirely up to me, it'd be different, but it's not. And I'm glad that it's not, because then I would be getting a whole bunch of emails
Get a
about
lot
what a
of
horrible
emails.
calendar I've created. So
They wouldn't be loving emails.
anyway, I said about 139 more words than I should have, and I'll stop.
Thank you. Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. These calendars are quite an undertaking. They're on one page and they look simple, like how hard could it be? But I think it is quite an undertaking. And I know you take a lot into the fold to create these, so thank you for that. I just have a couple comments that have kind of come at me from community members, parents in the district, and I'm just going to ask them. But I agree with Brian, we really, the board's job is not to really go into too much detail in this, because you have fulfilled the state requirements for the days. And so beyond that, it's up to the staff. But I did have parents asking about how they could have input into the calendar, which probably makes people gasp. But I had some parents reach out and just communicate the hardship that it creates, the breaks, and trying to find childcare. And I think that was accelerated by COVID and how a lot of the weekly camps were no longer. So hopefully we can maybe work with the city or continue working with the YMCA or however to alleviate that hardship. And the other thing is actually related to academic achievement. And so I had two parents reach out and say that, could the week breaks be longer? And I was like, why? I didn't understand why. And they said, because so many families travel to Mexico and stay. And so what ends up happening is they travel and then a week isn't long enough. So then they stay extra. And of course they go through the proper procedures and forms with the principals to make sure that's okay. But to me, then those kids are losing a week's time. And that isn't really, to me, in alignment with our LCAP goals of making sure that our target populations don't fall behind. So that's my comment. I don't know how it could really be implemented in there, but that was some community feedback that I got that I thought was valuable to pass on.
Thank you, Trustee Carolyn.
Sure.
And my comment would be, I think teachers need breaks. There might be a few that don't, but I worked from January 1st to June 15th, one week, and it just about kills you. So I like the breaks, and yes, it's early, but I think that all the stuff that's been discovered about the slide in the summer, and you want to talk about kids and the inequities, the kids that are going to museums and taking fabulous vacations, they're just soaring. But the kids that are sitting at home doing nothing for the summer, they're losing. So I'm a big fan. All right, now public comment. Oh, he already commented. Thank you though, John. I don't want to make a boo-boo and step on anyone's toes. Thank you, Dr. Rivera. Public comment? Okay, I move that we accept the 2022-23 and the 23-24 school calendar, a 2-year model. Up, okay. Okay, Jennifer. We'll
Thank
go
you.
back.
President Dawson, your comment about the kids sitting at home kind of points to how inequity works, because the kids sitting at home most of the time might enjoy those trips with their family or being out on vacations, but it's not an opportunity to afford it to them. So school might be an opportunity for them to have a better experience for sitting at home. So that's also something we might want to consider.
That was my point. I agree. Any other comments? Okay, so the motion's been made.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Christy Dawson, seconded by Dr. Frank Rivera. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson.
Aye.
Trustee Rivera.
Aye.
Trustee Path.
Well, it is the hobgoblin of little minds, nay.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Swanson.
Aye.
Holy cow.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Now I'm leaning towards John. I'll vote aye on this one, but.
Motion carries at 4-1. Now we'll move forward on a revised job description for confidential position of administrative assistant to the
It's been
assistant.
9 years, Billy. I'm sorry. I'm
I
not going to
know,
break a streak.
I know.
What's wrong?
Nothing. She's laughing. It's all good.
Well, John, let's take a moment.
No, go ahead.
Tell me when you're done.
I'm
I
done,
don't
I'm
want to
done.
step on your
I'm
toes.
done. Thank you.
If we can move forward for the people who might
Ma'am.
like to sleep this evening and go to work tomorrow. Revised job description for confidential position of admin assistant to the assistant soup of business services.
So this is a revision to the job description. It's actually Assistant Superintendent Song Chin Ben Dibs, administrative assistant. And as you know, Denise Ingalls is retiring this year, so this has become a vacancy. Every time in the district we have a vacancy, we look at the job description, we talk to the administrator, we find out what needs to be, if anything, adjusted. And And that's what we're doing here. We're adjusting this job description to be clear in the areas as listed on the front cover. Those are the same items that are listed in the job description to be revised. And these were specific to items that through her years here, Assistant Superintendent Song Chin Bendib has seen that was lacking in the job description.
Any questions, please? Dr. Rivera?
Yes, so are these in red? Is that what Denise has been doing? So it's been decided that it should be written into the job description?
Yes, most of them,
Okay,
yes.
great, thank you.
Mhm.
Trustee Carolyn?
Thank you. And I just want to confirm, do these, is this job a union job or outside of a union? Okay,
It's a confidential
Okay.
position.
then I'm not going to ask if you consulted the union on it. But I don't have any other questions.
Trustee Path?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Trustee Swanson?
Nothing, thank you.
I think it's always wonderful when someone who's been there and you're spending the time and see what is lacking and can hone it and wordsmith it. So I'm a big fan. Public comment? Beth?
Just have a question. Billy, as a matter of course, do you do exit interviews with people that are leaving, that have been here a long time?
We do conduct exit interviews oftentimes when they get their letter, they give us their letter,
Mhm.
then I'll have a conversation with them. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. I vote to approve the revised job description for confidential position of administrative assistant to the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services.
Second?
Motion was made by Christy Dawson, seconded by Dr. Frank Rivera. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Path,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson. Aye. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the 2020 through 2021 financial audit report for measures A and D, financial and performance audit report.
Thank you, President Dawson. I believe the manager of Ike Bailey is here to present. He has a PowerPoint. Ryan Zielinski, but real quickly, I'll just introduce the topic. This is 2021 audit. It's always a little bit behind, after we close the books, the auditor has to do their work and then it's sent it to county and then to be sent to the state. So this year, there's a little bit of extension because of a number of reasons. One of them is because Covet, and then with staff also with the person who is in charge of the audit also has to take a leave. So there's a couple of reasons. And it was actually approved by the State Controller's Office as well as the county. For an extension until April 1st. So the auditors already submitted it to the state. And for audit report, it's for the board to accept. It's not so much to approve or not because it's independent. It's external audit. And so you see it as unmodified. Is several years in a row. It means no any qualified, no findings, any material findings. What exception this year is also no ASB findings. And because of lack of activity, because of the pandemic.
We'll take it.
We'll come back. Yeah, that's right, even 1 year. With that, I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. Zielinski.
Good evening, everyone. And let me share my screen to start.
I think I need to have you be a little louder, please, Ryan.
Oh, okay. How about now? Is that better?
Yes, thank you so
Okay.
much.
You're welcome. Okay. So let me share. Okay, it says I am sharing my screen. Okay. So just a quick PowerPoint presentation. And so, just kind of the audit process we come out to, well, normally we go out to the school district twice a year, once before August and then once after August, September time, after the books are closed. So the 2021 audit was performed full remote due to the pandemic and everything. But we're excited to be there. We'll be there back in person on April 25th. So I'm excited to be back in the Pacific Grove, Monterey area. I've missed going up there and seeing the ocean. So we will be back there in April. So like Song said, the overall opinion of the financial statements for 2021 was unmodified. And basically that means that there's no findings, no audit adjustments, and the financial statements were materially correct. And on the right side of the screen, this is a page in the audit report that's towards the back. So you'll see, the financial statements unmodified, no findings, no compliance areas were noted, or no compliance issues were noted. And then we audit your federal awards. And this year we audited the Learning Loss Mitigation Fund, or the CRF funds. Again, federal compliance, no findings there. And then we also audited the state compliance in a few areas that the state mandates us to look at. And we had no compliance findings there either. So, and just kind of a little bit of structure of the actual report. The first kind of section is the management discussion and analysis. This is the easier kind of read, the shorter, and also comparing from prior year. So one thing that you'll notice in the audit report that this year is different from past years was the implementation of GASB 84. So what that did is it restated the beginning balance of the financials to account for the student activities. And that's your ASB and scholarships. So that information is now a governmental fund, and it's all recorded in Fund 08 for presentation purposes. Then following that are the financial statements. The first two is a statement of net position and the statement of revenues and expenses that we call the entity-wide. So that includes all your fixed assets and your long-term obligations. And then following that are your fund financials, your general fund, building fund, cafeteria fund, those financials as well. And then just to chat about the statement of net position, the overall net position was a deficit of 20.1 million, and then the unrestricted was 39 million deficit. The bonds of the school district is 44 million. The OPEB liability was 9.5, and your pension liability was 44.9. So we always like to point out to, since the district has to now report the pension obligation on their financials, as a result of that, the impact on the net position was a negative 35.7 million. So if you kind of look at that in conjunction with the deficit of 20.1 million, you can see really that deficit is primarily caused by the pension being reflected on the financial statements. And just some quick financial highlights. The general fund increased 1.4 million. The building fund increased at 4.7 million. And you guys issued the $6 million in Series A of election 2020 bonds. And then all of the other funds combined increased to 0.9 million. And the available reserves of the general fund ended at just shy of 13%. So we saw an increase in that over the last couple of years, so that's good to see. And here I'll kind of segue, since I have the building fund on this slide. We also did perform the financial audit and performance audit of the Measure A and Measure D proceeds being spent on the projects. And there were no issues in that testing as well either. So no compliance areas there. or no compliance issues there were noted. And that is it.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Trustee Swanson, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Paff?
Song, can you tell us this $44.9 million net pension obligation? Is that a reasonable number compared to our overall budget? And do you know what that might look like compared to other districts?
No, we have not done a comparison, but it's just our fair share, of the state unfunded liability of STIRS and PERS. And several years ago, they moved that and that we have to report on financial statement. It is from a, local perspective, we don't have to fund it, but then it's still, when we sell bonds, when issue series, investors will look at it, but they totally understand this, something was placed on us for future obligations. Is we do it pay as you go. We don't have money to pay for future liabilities. But that's what happens, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you know, is that increasing or decreasing? I didn't go back. And if you don't know, it's an unfair question. I'm kind of catching you off guard. So.
I have not looked at last year's, didn't compare last year, but I mean, just a wild guess, probably is increasing.
Okay, thank you very much. And to our gentleman at Riley here. Bailey, sorry. Did I hear you say that you included in this, you said what you audited on both Measure A and Measure D, those are unmitigated positive right now?
Yeah, those were both unmodified opinions and no issues were noted there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. This was a really clean audit. Song, I've been listening to these audits for a couple of years now, and it was maybe because we didn't have the ASB snag that we have had often. I just saw one kind of slight error that was caught in the report, and it was immediately remedied. So overall, it's a really good job. Thank you.
Dr. Rivera?
No questions. Thank you.
Yes, again, it's so thorough and it's wonderful to get these results. So thank you for your good work. And I think it's reflective of Song's good work. So thank you so much for tonight's presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so I move we accept public comment. Everybody's trying to, it's a lot of talk about the numbers, always dying to talk. All righty. Now, I move that we accept the 2020-2021 financial audit report for measures A and D, financial and performance audit report.
Second.
Motion was made by trustee Dawson, seconded by trustee Paff. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Rivera? Trustee Pav?
Aye.
Trustee Brian Swanson? Aye. Trustee Carolyn Swanson?
Aye. Thank you, Ryan.
Motion carries.
Madam President, may I just make a quick comment to thank our staff because it was pandemic. Instead of coming over here, we have to upload a lot of files into the portal. So this in a way created a lot of work. So we have site folks, our district office staff. So it's a lot of work on our staff as well. So I just want to thank you.
Please tell everybody a huge thank you from the board. And it's nice you take a moment to recognize them. Now we'll move on to ratification of Pacific Grove Middle School CCS honor event. Mr. Tavani is making his way to the mic.
Good evening, Jason Tavani, Pacific Grove Middle School. This is very similar to item C, which Lito spoke about so well. We had the same thing happen. I'm not sure if this was like because these two groups each went at the same time, if there was some connection between them. I don't know a whole lot about it, but our choir went up to Watsonville to perform in CCS. And I don't know exactly how we did, but there was a miscommunication between Jared Mazer and our office staff and Mr. Roach. I was texting with him earlier. He says, been handled. We won't be doing that again. I know it's coming. So just a mistake, and That's what happened. So they're back. Everyone came back.
Did everyone return?
Which is good.
Okay, we'll check that off. Okay, board comments. Trustee Carolyn.
Well, this is your first offense, so I actually wasn't going to scold, but thanks for
I
bringing
do the
that up. No, thank you for this. I appreciate it.
I hope they had fun.
All right. Trustee Paff.
Skate park. Huh?
Let's go.
I thought that's
Every
what behind the
community
middle
needs
school
one.
was the skate park for the,
Put it at the middle school.
fair enough. No, I have no comments on this. Thank you, Jason. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. You should be here every, all right.
If we
Trustee
put-
Swanson,
If we put skate park at the middle school.
what the heck?
wouldn't have
What
to
are we?
worry At all.
I've lost control of the meeting.
Do you happen to know? And if you don't, of course, that's okay. Was there also a band element to the CCS and we just didn't participate in that because we had choir, but we didn't have band?
I am not exactly sure. I think it was just choir because band didn't go. Miss Priest was still out, correct. She
Okay.
was off on leave and then returned, so they skipped it this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again,
Needed
I'm
that.
thrilled that we were there. Total of 32 students from the district participating in that. At any time, I think that we can participate in CCS related things is awesome. You just love that I like to talk about music and choir. and
You
band
like
stuff.
that music. It's everything. I watch the Grammys. How can you not think it's everything? I just think there needs to be obviously just huge checklists. I mean,
Right.
you're ordering a bus. They don't like just migrate there magically. So somewhere in the procedure needs to be a check, double check, especially when you have new office staff who's
Right.
new to things,
Right.
to just make sure those things get handled. But any public comment? Because we love music. No public comment at this time. So can we have a motion, please?
Make a motion to accept.
Motion was made by trustee Paff, seconded by trustee Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Path,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson,
Aye.
trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tavani. Contract for services with Shamrock Office Solutions Landon for the financing and maintenance of district copy machine. I'm sure.
Thank you. It's time to do that to renew our lease and ready to not to renew from the same company. We went out to request for proposals. 3 come back and Shamrock is the lowest. And it's actually surprisingly, given we heard so much about, actually we experienced it ourselves about supply chain issue, labor costs and such. They can be a little bit less. So the savings is about $40.45 per month. So we'll take anything. So this is for 3 years. So this is our recommendation to go with the lowest.
Any questions, board? Dr. Rivera?
No questions, but thank you for actually going out and looking for options instead of just an automatic renewal.
Very good. Trustee Carolyn?
No comments.
Trustee Brian Swanson?
Well, I gotta say
Is there music connected to this?
that I
I
think
love to
it's-
hear him hum.
I think we're really lucky that we're saving money and maybe it's just coincidental, but it ended up being Shamrock that got the bid.
Coincidental, is today March 17th or something?
Well, Shamrock is, in the 4-leaf clover.
Okay. I have to look deeper for the meeting. What about you, trustee Pat?
I'm good, thank you.
So am I. Any public comment on this? Like of the Irish, any puns we've missed? Seeing none, I move we accept the contract for services with Shamrock Office Solutions Landon for financing and maintenance of the district copy machines.
Second.
Okay, motion made by trustee Dawson, seconded by Dr. Rivera. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Path,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson,
Aye.
trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Motion carries. And we're moving on to board calendar and future meetings, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I think there was a request last time to include the board meetings for the upcoming year, which has been done for you there in italics. I do want to note that, again, in these calendars, typically the items that are included are items that are generally items covered during that time. There may be other specific items that aren't listed there, but these are just sort of markers in terms of generally what items we cover. So there are the dates for you. And if the board would like to approve this, they may do so tonight. Otherwise, if there are any changes or adjustments you'd like to make, now's the time.
Let's find out. Frank, do you have anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Paff?
Well, it's out here a little ways, so no, I mean, we can add stuff, subtract stuff, TBD September 24. That's interesting that we just put it down. The superintendent goals on October 6th is a public meeting. Yeah, no, there's nothing here that jumps out. It's different or unique, so thank you.
Okay, Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, so for today's meeting, actually on the list was a quarterly district safety update, and tell me about those. Are we not having those, or what?
They're as needed. There was nothing, I think at this point that she intended to report, but I'll check in with just our safety director and see if there's something else. The big items were reported earlier in terms of the Fentanyl Town Hall and the procedures that were going that way. But I can check with her at this point. Again, typically it's as needed and it's noted in the italics with the asterisk there. So at the bottom. So if you look at the bottom square, there's an asterisk there. Follow.
Oh, on the previous page, 275?
Yeah, you just go down to the bottom of the grid of any of the grids there. You'll see a.
Oh, I see. It's on 277.
You'll see just a asterisk there. And typically it'll say as needed on there.
And what would trigger that being needed?
If there's something significant to report that's outside of the ordinary, that we need to make sure we're taking care of, and usually it's a fairly large item, but.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Brian Swanson?
You know, I think it's interesting in some ways. We're every meeting, because we're getting a COVID update too, we're sort of getting safety update in one way, at least, because it relates to everything that's happening and safety of everybody, or the health and safety of everybody. But that was just an observation. I would love at some point, and not right now, but in the future, to talk about if there's a way for us to return to having meetings at different sites, because I kind of miss that.
Them.
You know, and I like seeing the other places and the opportunity for the other sites to show themselves off. So maybe some point down the line, we can talk about that.
I think that's an excellent point. I get a big thrill out of it myself. I mean, and they give us gifts. Now tonight, someone knew we were in pain, and I see some beautiful Forest Grove wear here, and I'll be sporting that proudly. So
Shamrock green, I think.
Shamrock, there's a theme to tonight's meeting. We'll have to do that. All right, is there any public comment on board calendar or future meetings? Not at this time. So do we move to accept this as is, knowing? Okay.
Because there's addition to the calendar now, so yeah.
Okay. Will you make that for me, Trustee Paff?
Make a motion to accept the calendar changes as presented.
I second. So Trustee Paff has made the motion and Trustee Dawson seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson.
Aye.
Trustee Rivera.
Aye.
Trustee Paff.
Aye.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Aye.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll now move forward to information discussion. And the first thing we'll talk about tonight, please, is PG Middle School update on staff professional development and social emotional support.
And good evening, Jason Tavani. So this item was submitted because we're doing some pretty cool stuff at the middle school, and we wanted to take an opportunity to brag. Not that everything is perfect, it's not. We have work to do, but we're doing some things that are important to us. Our staff is buying in, and yeah, we're just excited about it. So opportunity to share. The first is called Universal Design for Learning. This is offered, it's a professional development series. There are 3 parts, they're 2 hours each. offered through MCOE with a gentleman named Mirko Chardin. And Mirko is a bit of a visionary. He's an instructional leader, and he is part of the development of this framework. So UDL is a framework for designing learning experiences for students so that those experiences acknowledge the differences in the room, right? From, you know, needs and experiences, culture, ability, learning style, so that we don't have to kind of after the fact modify or differentiate, right? And so it's you know, for all of us, for teachers that have been teaching for a long time and we have our way of planning, it's a bit of like a tough pill to swallow to think that now we're going to be approaching that practice, that art differently. But for many teachers, it's not very different. It's a little bit of problem or project-based and problem-based learning elements. But the goal is to give everybody an equal opportunity to succeed regardless of their learning style or whatever. So a variety of teaching methods will remove those barriers. The flexibility is key. So flexibility in the way that students access material and the flexibility in the way that students demonstrate their learning. You'd see in a UDL lesson, for example, and again, we're 2/3 of the way there, so I'm not the expert right now, right? But you'd start with an objective, as we do, but start with an objective that has many different ways of accomplishing that objective, provide different opportunities. So for getting information, you might have text as an option, you might have music as an option, poetry as an option, variety of different forms depending on what your topic is and what your content is. And so ways of getting information, and then also ways that they can demonstrate their understanding. It might be some of those same things. It could be create a rap song about, you know, the Constitution, or I just had another thing that just slipped my mind right there. Create a podcast, just a bunch of different ways, kind of a menu, so that students who are auditory learners can pick the things that work for them. Students who like the kinesthetic movement can pick the things that work for them. Our conversation earlier about the spaces that Mr. Binder is looking at putting into Robert Downe, Forest Grove, and our school fit perfectly. That is the type of space that we need to do UDL, where you might have some students that are working on a touch screen, right? A large format touch screen. You have other students that are working with pen and paper over here. You got a whiteboard going on over here. These kids are rolling things across the, you know, so we need a space that isn't your traditional classroom with desks. And so that's one way that we hope that that space at our, that flex space at our school gets utilized. The three like pillars of UDL are engagement, like why are we learning this? Representation, what are we learning, and who is involved, right? So we're looking at cultural relevance and backgrounds of students. And then action and expression, like how will students demonstrate their understanding? Again, this isn't a brand new spin on education. It's a nice collection of ideas that go well together to plan instruction. So that's the universal design for learning. We have one more session coming up, and staff participate virtually, and the comments in the chat are, you know, Mr. Roach and I afterwards kind of sit back and reflect on the things that we saw our staff saying about what they're learning. So engaging, the speaker is passionate and compelling, and so it's just working really well with our staff right now. So we're happy about that. To accompany that, but this is kind of the other way of making sure that all students have access to the content, is we purchased this book for all staff. It's called Doable Differentiation, 12 Strategies to Meet the Needs of All Learners. And really, I guess the short description of what this book is differentiation is not new. It's something that all teachers do. Wait time. So that's a differentiation strategy, is to make sure that I'm giving everyone time on their different timelines to think and come up with a response. And so we have a way of doing that. This book will provide you 6 more ways of doing that, right? So it's just like we're differentiating the way that we're doing wait time, right? So it's kind of the other end of UDL, with the same purpose of ensuring that all students have access to the content during initial instruction, like as part of the plan for teachers. They're planning how they're going to differentiate. They're planning how students are going to engage. I know we already do that. Again, nothing brand new, but this text we find super helpful. The way that it's laid out is very accessible. You can pick a strategy, open it up, and just kind of get to a nugget that you could probably use next period. So you don't have to read cover to cover. That's not our plan. We're going to look at what we need or what we feel we need, and then go to specific chapters with our leadership team doing some of that. So this is our work for this remainder of this year, as well as next year. This will be the one book that we study as a staff. Character Strong, I think we've spoken a bit about Character Strong, but this is the social emotional learning program that we implement in our advisory program. Advisory is 1 day a week, it's 40 minutes, and Character Strong has 35 lessons at each grade level that are digital and interactive and focus on things like empathy and kindness and recognizing students' backgrounds and things like this. So it's a nice little handoff from the toolkit that students come to us with to what we're doing. It's like that learning has been going on for a long time, and it takes on a little bit of a different form at our school, but the ideas are the same. I mean, you're going to see a lot of the same stuff. Is there a listening tool?
Yes,
Yeah? Okay.
yes.
Because I looked at what the 6th grade lesson was the other day for in Character Strong, and it was about listening. It was titled Listening with Empathy, and it was teaching students how to be better listeners. And so pairs of students were assigned like speaker and listener roles, and they were given a prompt, something like if you went viral, like what would that mean to you, or something like that, right? And so student had to speak, the speaker had to speak for 1 minute while the listener just sat quietly listening. And then after a minute, the listener had to come up with 3 follow-up questions that they might ask, because asking follow-up questions is the way that you show someone that you're actually listening, right? And you keep the conversation going. And so we're trying to specifically value what the speaker is saying by deliberately, with empathy, asking questions about what they had said. So that was just last Monday's. That's a little example of some of the stuff that our students do. They have a great scope and sequence that shows how these ideas start at the beginning of the year, or even in the beginning of 6th grade, and then spiral through these 8 pillars that they use to the end of 8th grade. So there's a coherent scope and sequence. Our students, in the morning, I'm standing by the door, I'm handing out masks as kids walk in, and I remind them that it's advisory day, and I just hear this like, oh, right? It's not easy for middle school kids to talk about feelings. And that's where I put that grunt. I'm like, yeah, right? Like, go take your medicine. But we see impact. And, so one of the lessons shows a video of a student who was in a leadership program very similar to Character Strong that was developed by the founder of Character Strong. And he was moved by something he had studied or learned, and decided that he was going to spend every day standing by the front door, opening the doors to the school to all students. And he did that for, the whole year, and whatever, got a community service award at the end of the year, et cetera. Since we've implemented Character Strong, you can go around to any door at PGMS, because most of them are locked. But there's a student that will stand at each one of those and hold the door open as others come by. Even while I'm holding one door open, other students, and it's sometimes the same student, sometimes it's other students, but they'll just open the door and stand there and hold it open. I'm not connecting that directly to Character Strong, but we're seeing things that weren't part of our school years before, right? It also gives us an opportunity to listen to students. And so a lot of the activities give students a chance to talk or to write, and we get to see those results. And then teachers will come out of advisory and say, hey, maybe they're coming to me, maybe they're going to a colleague, and they're sharing what a student said. And through that work, through that process, we're understanding what's going on with our students a little bit better. It's just bringing us a little bit closer to kind of what they need or what they are saying. We have a widely adopted practice of these like weather checks, and that came out of Character Strong, where you basically create a couple questions about like, how you feeling today? Like if it was like, if your feelings were the weather today, what would it be? And then students have an opportunity to explain. They might just choose cloudy, sunny, whatever, but they might describe why today is cloudy. And so that's all collected in Google Docs and something that's actionable and sometimes shared with me or with others, with counselors even, or counseling referrals sometimes come from that for a counselor to go check in with a student. So those are some of the ways that we're finding that Character Strong has had impact on not only the students, on the students as well. Each lesson ends with a dare, and a dare is like a challenge or an opportunity for a student to practice the thing, listening with empathy, for example. So the dare for that last lesson that I explained was to ask a friend or family member at least 3 follow-up questions based on something they share over the next 3 days. So if you haven't been asked 3 follow-up questions, Mrs. Chavez, there you go. See, impact in the room, right? So we love it. I think staff likes it. Staff is, as I think, a little unsure if Monday is the best time for it. So we're going to open that up and have a discussion. We want it to work for everybody. So, but I don't think it's going anywhere. You think Thursday? It'll be a short Thursday. Yeah. And I have a hard time keeping track of our schedules. That makes sense to me. I'll start moving a little quicker now. So thank you for bearing with me. Chill Games. So Chill Games was an idea that came up out of our Chill committee. So Chill is a campus culture committee founded by the Honorable Buck Rogaman. And it's still in existence to this day. And what we did at this meeting early on in the year was looked at our core SEL data. So this is one of the surveys that we've been taking for a number of years that aligns very closely with the California Healthy Kids Survey. And we found that our students' connectedness, school connectedness had declined. And that was something we talked about. And this is after we've come back from the pandemic, and we've got kids at our school that are 8th graders that we've only had for 6 months of 6th grade. And so no wonder, right? So what do we do? How do we change that? How do we get kids more connected? And some of the comments were things like, well, we don't have like assemblies. We haven't had anything that brings our whole school together. And so this idea of Chill Games is to take advantage of, staff that have great ideas and students that want to connect and use lunchtime to plan activities that bring the whole school together. Now, whether you're involved in the activity or just aware that the activity is happening, we're all part of it. It's something that all of us can talk about, like our video bulletin and like Character Strong, right? It's just a common thread. And so we've got a team of 5 teachers and 4 teachers and 1 classified staff that meet bi-weekly, so once every 2 weeks. And then in that in-between week, they're executing the game or the activity that they planned. We've done dodgeball. We did a memory game where they made these big cards and you flip them over, but they were all emojis and you had to match them in a relay style, and your team was trying to get the most stack of cards. We did a shoe rally where students removed their shoes, put them in a giant pile in the middle of the field, and then had to run and find their shoes. Of course, everybody's wearing black and white Vans. And so that was a little tricky if you had the right size or if they were too big or whatever. So just an example of some of the things that we are trying to do with that little group. So thanks to Song and others that had a hand in approving that, we're finding it to be valuable. It's something we want to continue in the future. And it's actually, pretty darn cheap to get that done. So that's Chill Games. The Chapman grant, Mr. Roach wrote a grant for some additional counseling and he got it. That has manifest in a 0.6 counselor that's with us Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. She's fantastic. She's currently seeing 7 students per day. So that's 21 more kids that are having a 30-minute conversation with a counselor at our school that we wouldn't otherwise be able to serve because all of our other counselors are slammed. All counselors are slammed. So we're excited to have her. She's Spanish speaking, and that is also an asset to our school. We have other Spanish speakers, but the more the merrier. We want to break down barriers for communication with our families. Finally, the Cal Hope grant is something that Mr. Roach was awarded. We are one of 3 schools in Monterey County to have received that grant. It's $66,000 over 3 years to be spent on social emotional learning and social emotional health program and activities. And the idea behind the grant is that they want schools to do the development of ideas so that they can then spread these ideas around the state, right? So they will be sharing these. I'm not sure what format that would be. But our first step, we're already underway with this work. Our first step is to work with parents, students, and educators to develop our SEL mission statement. And so that's in development. We have a deadline of mid-May for this grant. And so we'll be reaching out to some of those groups. Our teachers have provided some input. We'll be looking out to the community over the next several weeks. And all of our spending for the funds that we're receiving for that grant will be aligned with that mission statement. So that is my long-winded update for you all. Any questions?
Okay, board questions. Let's start with trustee Brian.
It was worth every minute of it. Thank you for the presentation. And I know this is something that you guys have been working on for a long time, and I love to see that you're, I think I remember the first one I heard about that really caught my attention was students of concern, and how you were really trying to just pay attention, watch for those kids and make sure that you had them. But seeing that there's so much more and that you're continuing to add to it is really remarkable, and that you're getting creative and getting grant money. I'm curious about the grant. How long does that run for? Is that a year? Is it more than 1 year? Do you know offhand?
It is 3 years. So that's the Cal Hope grant, which
Okay,
is
yeah,
to
yeah,
develop the SEL program and so
Okay.
on. Yeah. The Chapman grant is a 1 year thing that we're going to apply for next year as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just remarkable. There's so many different threads that I could pull on, but they're all just really great. And one thing that struck me in particular too is that, you're paying attention to the timelines or the amount of time that it takes kids to get through their work or, answer a question. It's like, but, speaking from my own personal experience, I've got two very, very different kids. One who races to the right answer and just wants to be at the front of the line, and another one who's like going to make sure and worries that it might be wrong and is going to think it out. And if you give her an hour to take a test, she's going to ask for 2 hours. But you're paying attention to that. So again, I could go on. There are other people up here, I'm sure, that have questions and comments. Thank you for the presentation. I think it's awesome.
Trustee Path.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for the update. Actually, you've passed out a lot of information in here. Doable differentiation sounds fascinating that someone's put this together with should say, okay, we have wait times, and here's 6 ways of getting there. Stand in front of the desk, point out, or however you get there to allow the child to.
1,000, 2, 1,000. You can have them pause and write on a card so that if you're doing a class discussion for wait time, because students just want to talk all over each other, but before they do that, they have to write on their card, and they can only read what's on their card, right? But just strategies like that we may not think about for a long time. So yeah.
No, really very fascinating to hear these going on. Actually, the whole explanation of UDL is very nice. Are the character programs those the same pillars that Forest Grove has posted?
If not exactly,
Different
no.
program?
No, they're not
I
that
have
well aligned.
Buck shaking his head yes, and Jason said it is a different program. Yes, it's a different program.
Yeah.
Okay. Not quite an immediate follow on as we go from one to the other as we go.
No, and by design, Character Strong was designed for secondary. So there's actually a high school component. And they just found that the continuing what we've done in the elementaries with middle schools just wasn't, cool.
Yeah.
I'm a middle schooler now.
Okay. Well, I actually have some other stuff I think I'll pass on. I really appreciate your presentation tonight. So, and it's interesting that you have a method, as you said, getting middle school children to talk about feelings, and that you're actually very, very actively trying to pull that out this year.
Yes.
I think that the middle school, since I've been here, has always tried to make sure they touch upon every child every day, make sure that we're not, and I appreciate that continuation.
It's still a work in progress, of course.
I think it always will be. You have new students next year. So thank you.
Trustee Carolyn.
Your presentation was so engaging and it didn't require a PowerPoint or anything like that. I think just because of your passion and because it's really clear you just believe in this and you see it working. So I wish we had a presentation like that at every meeting. It kind of made my night, to be honest. So thank you. And so much of what you were talking about actually kind of reminds me of an individualized education plan for kids who qualify for special education. And it's not to that level, but it's kind of finding patterns in how kids learn and applying it to small groups. And what could be better than that for a child to feel seen and understood how they learn in a classroom. So that's just wonderful. I just kept thinking, I wish we had a way to kind of write to, and maybe we do, information wise, public information officer wise. This is an example of what I would love to read about, an article in the Herald. We've been seeing a lot of other districts talk about what they've been doing, and this is a fantastic item. So I don't know if there's something we could do if we have connections from the district office to reach out to newspapers or news stations, but the grants and the way that you're approaching this is just, it's a breath of fresh air.
Good. We need that.
Yeah, good job.
Dr. Frank?
Yeah, thank you so much. I love all the stuff that you're doing, especially the UDL. I mean, like, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have an IEP for every child? If we had the manpower, woman power, and the time to do that. And this is kind of approaching that though, like we're recognizing the different learning styles. So thank you for investing time into that, and for the faculty and investing time. The Character Strong is phenomenal. There's many children in our district who spend more time at school with their teachers than their parents on a day-to-day basis, especially when you have a dual income household. So working on this, I'm sure that parents really appreciate that when they send their children off to school, not only are they learning academics, but they're learning how to be good citizens. So I really appreciate that.
We spend so much time as a board with the business of education, with the facilities and the finances, and all that has to be in place. But it's delightful to hear again about the kids and what goes on day to day. SEL, that acronym, I wouldn't have known what that was a few years ago when I worked as a counselor and ran counseling.
Yeah.
And that it's now so integral to what we do with our kids, especially post-COVID. So all these things are so integral for kids to learn how to advocate for themselves and advocate for others, and how they learn and how they approach things. It's just such a critical part of their development. And I think from the little guys and all the way up in high school, everywhere, students discovering who they are and how they need to be in this world is so important. Wonderful presentation, just thrilling to hear this stuff. And I know Dr. Rivera and I were talking to Dr. Porce, and we think this has got to be a part of our board meetings, is not just business, that we want to keep hearing about the academics and all the incredible things our kids are doing. It's so important. So thank you. Every second was fabulous.
Great.
We appreciate it so much. Public comment?
Beth Shamas. Yes, I think it's really good. I wonder if you are planning an evaluation of these programs, because over the years, as you know, we do many programs at different sites. They all sound great at the beginning, and they are, but we may never hear 2 years, then somebody else comes in. It's a new principal, new assistant principal. They have an idea. We're off and running on a new way. So we don't really know what happened to the other one. I mean, I'm thinking back to all the middle school programs that when I was on the board, I heard about, and I'm wondering, okay, well, what happened to that one? What did it just died a natural death, and then, somebody came up with a different one. So I think it's so important to require evaluation of programs, because you don't know what you got, how do you judge that that was a valuable program? We want to put more money into that. We want to expand that, or that didn't quite work the way we wanted. We need to tweak it or something like that. And the other thing is that we're a unique small district, and we're unique in the way that we have so many of our kids that start basically in preschool and graduate with us. So we have this opportunity to really help these children all the way through. And the most important thing to me is that we have coordination of programs. So just like he was saying, that when the elementary school kids get to the middle school, they don't want to feel like they're back in elementary school. I get that. However, the counselors should be talking to each other at each level, and we should be having a streamlined programs that connect each other, so that when people leave the elementary school and go to the middle school, that whatever they're doing is related to what they already learned in the elementary school, counseling wise, let's say, or like the Character Strong, and these are all great programs. But what I see has happened is that we just they drop off so that they are compartmentalized at each level instead of being connected. So that's what I would just encourage people to think about, how, as a goal, how you wanted to put those all together.
Madam President.
So we have 4 counselors at our school, not all full-time, but each of the elementaries have an 80% counselor, and that other 20% is at our site. So we actually have a counselor from Forest Grove. We have a counselor from Robert Downe. And so that serves us very well. We love that setup. I know it won't last forever, and then we'll have to find some other way. But for now, we have a great kind of pipeline of understanding what's been going on with social emotional work at each of the elementaries via our counselors. And so I can work with students and parents about whether that student wants to work with the middle school counselor. Would it be better if you worked with the same counselor that you had for 6 years in elementary school? Maybe that's a benefit for this particular issue or time in the student's life. And so we have a variety of different ways that we can support students simply because we have those counselors on our campus. So we're very happy about that. As far as program evaluation for this stuff, I think it'd be Character Strong would be the one that would be, evaluated. And our staff is pouring time and energy, and we're pouring professional development money into bringing down trainers for our staff and so on. So our staff is they're very honest with us. They're passionate. They don't want to waste a single instructional minute. So yeah, they're wondering if all these 40 minutes are really worth it, and we'll hear from them. And so I look forward to that. I champion this program. I did the research to kind of find it and try to bring it here. And so I am connected to it. But if our staff decides that it's not working and they want to go in a different direction, as long as that direction gets us where we need to go, that's the right thing to do. So, yeah.
Thank you for that feedback. Okay. Very, very much appreciated. All right, now, do we have something? Or are you just pointing? Okay, I thought you were waving at me. My new friend. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to future agenda items, please.
Madam President, if I may, I was remiss in that we do have one more action item this evening.
Oh,
That
I'm
was the walk-on
remiss.
item.
That's
I
right.
apologize for not
please.
catching that on time. However, Director Davies will be available as well.
Okay.
So if we can get her on the horn, we can, you can address this as you like. If you have questions or if you just want to move forward.
So should we just read what these are, or she's going to say something? Or
She's prepared to present tonight.
Oh,
so it's up to
yeah,
you.
briefly, that'd be great. So we just know what that is. Can you do that for us, Billy, please?
This would be Director Davies.
Oh, Davies, I'm sorry. Okay, wonderful. So there's 2 items here that we're looking at. One is the contract with Positive Behavior Support Corps, and the other.
That's the item.
That is the item. I've
Yes.
got lots of paper here with lots of different things, but that's it. All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Clary, can you hear us?
You're on mute, Claire. There you go.
There you go.
Evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I am bringing forward a contract with the non-public agency called Positive Behavior Supports. And the reason I'm bringing this forward is because we are encountering great difficulty in staffing our special education classrooms when we need paraprofessionals. We've hired some really great people earlier in the school year, but as other needs have come up, we're just not getting viable applicants. I can assure you, we check every single day, and as soon as a good applicant comes in, we set up the testing for them and set up the interview as fast as we can. We're just not getting applicants. And we have two urgent needs that we really must fill. So I've been looking into agencies that have excellent reputations. This agency is firmly established actually in many states, but most especially in California, and they are expanding into Monterey County. And so they refer to their paraprofessionals as behavior technicians. And just like many other agencies, as part of the contract, they have a supervisor that will come in 3 hours a week. And those people are behavior analysts. And so I'm asking for this contract. I want to see how it works out. But as far as the quality of people that they provide, and but I know we have two urgent needs that we must fill right now. And so you see the cost there, and the funding source is contracted services. That's the funding source we use to pay contracts. And because we have some unfilled positions, we're able to take those funds and move them into contracted services. So the funding is within our budget.
Okay, thank you so much. Questions from the board? Trustee Swanson?
A couple of things. Let's see if I can remember them because they're flying. I should have written them down. I think it's safe to assume that these are not new students, but that they were being served by somebody else that no longer can fill that position. Is that correct, Claire?
One student, I mean, I don't like to share too many details because I don't want to, one student, for both students, it's safety needs. One student has some behaviors that are really emerging, that are really causing him to be unsafe. Actually, both students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. And not that it really would matter, because our role here is to make sure that every child is safe and every child gets an education. But we have no choice in doing that anyway. Even if that wasn't our role, we have to move forward and make sure that these things are taken care of, correct?
Well, especially if it's on the child's IEP.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it's we must provide.
Okay. I mean, I think that was it. I just wanted, those two had popped into my head. There was a third one that I forgot, and so I might come back, but we can move on for a sec for now.
Okay.
Thank you, Claire.
Trustee Paff?
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Christine.
Sure.
The two positions here, They report to you. They report to the site admin. Who do they report to ultimately?
Well, they will work under the supervision of the classroom teacher. And of course, our principals are very, very involved in our class, in the special classrooms. Ultimately, they work for their agency, and they do have the supervisor that comes in 3 hours a week.
Okay, and the agency or the school district has responsibility for background checks?
The agency has done the background checks. They're run through the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation background check.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Leave it at that. I think Brian's right. If we have the need right now because of an IEP, then we have the need. So thank you.
Trustee Carolyn?
Thank you, Claire. Thanks for bringing this up. And what site would these behavior technicians be working at?
Robert Downe.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Dr. Vera?
My question was asked and answered. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you so much for talking to us this evening. So any public comment on this? Okay, I missed the first name. Amy, please.
Hi, everyone. Amy Ramos. I'm a proud parent of 2 students that attend Robert Downe. And I just wanted to take a moment and thank the SPED staff at Robert Downe for their dedication and work ethic throughout this year and every year. They've had some challenges in that classroom. Many of them go above and beyond on a daily, and even when they're not in school, they go above and beyond to reach out to the students and check on them. Many of them do more than what their job descriptions entail. And I just want to give kudos to them because they constantly put smiles on the students' faces, and it's really heartfelt. That class is considered at Robert Downe mild to severe, and it holds students from kindergarten to 5th grade. The staff is currently at 7 staff members to 10 students. The majority of those students are more on the severe side. I, as a parent with a daughter that attends that class, I'm super concerned for the safety of the students in that classroom, as well as the concern that their IEPs are possibly not being met due to the staffing shortage. So I would encourage and asking respectfully that our principal, our trustees, and if possible, Dr. Porras, to spend a little time, maybe even a day if you can spare, to join that SPED class, see the need, experience what the staff, the students are going through on a daily basis, to see the challenges that they are facing, and to get some assistance in that classroom for the students and the staff. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments?
Sean Keller, principal at Robert Downe. Thank you, Amy. I just wanted you to know that myself, Teacher Patty, and Claire Davies have been discussing this issue intensively, especially the last few months. And just so you know, I was called in today. So I had my eyes open big time to what the needs are in the classroom. And I would ask that the trustees please pass this contract.
I have a follow-up question, if I may, Christy.
Sure.
When can these individuals start, Claire?
I was emailing with the director, and she has 2 people in mind, and they're going through the background check right now.
Okay, great. I actually am really glad to see this contract come through, because I know that we used to have an entity that we could reach out to for support when we had exhausted our remedies and hiring, and we lost that opportunity with that contractor. And so really hopeful that this contract works well. And it sounded like you were kind of testing them out as well and kind of hoping also that we can continue to use them in the future because it's an ongoing need. It seems to come and go, but it's pretty constant throughout the years.
That is, thank you so much.
Yeah, and if possible, I would love to go visit that classroom. I don't know what the rules are, if that's allowed with privacy, but I would love to go on a tour of that classroom. Thank you.
Earlier this year, I was able to sub for Patty during an IEP, and it is something. So there, and the staff in that room worked so hard, and the kids are indeed challenging. So let's, with no, we have another comment? Okay. Erica, please.
Hi, I just want to also give my support as a general education inclusion class for some of our friends from Patty's from that class. We're missing out on inclusion opportunities without the staff to support push in, and my kinders miss their friend who doesn't come as often as he should when the staff is limited. So all of the kindergartners in A2 would support this contract as well, please.
Okay. Thank you for that feedback. I think we're ready to do this. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to accept the contract.
Seconded. Oh, okay. Motion was made by trustee Paff, seconded by trustee Carolyn Swanson. Roll call vote.
Trustee Dawson,
Yes.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee John Papp,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson. Aye. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Motion carries. There will be relief coming soon. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sure. Now, moving on to future agenda items.
Thank you, Madam President. The future agenda items are as listed. I didn't hear any directly today, although there was a member of the public who asked to consider outdoor eating area. So I don't know if that's something the board wants to discuss or add to that list. Otherwise, you.
Regarding the outdoor eating area, I could see that being brought up when we discussed the Measure D. I think that would fall under a Measure D funding opportunity. And for me, I'd love to discuss it further and hear more information. I mean, we've seen the need for outdoor everything with COVID, but it's also just healthy in general. We've got the weather for it. And there was just an assembly this week at Forest Grove on water conservation, and the kids were outside because the weather's nice, but it would have been great if there was some sort of structure for them to sit under. So yeah, I would love to see that with the Measure D update and priority lists.
Yeah. All right, we'll add it to the Measure D update.
Thank you. Other board members? I would like to see evaluations. I know we've talked about this several times. I'd like to see, and March 15th has come and gone. And I'd like to just know from HR, please, how we did as far as the evaluations, obviously names redacted with teacher numbers, how many we had, you know, from the original with choosing California teacher standards, then how many evals, final eval, and have that presented to us. I'd love to see that, not in 6 months, but maybe, what do you think, Billy? A month? Okay, I would love to see that. And the last thing I wanted to say tonight is I'm in a situation now, I know I look really young to all of you. It's the distance, I think, but I have an older father who's quite demented, and the demands on my life have changed a lot recently. So Dr. Rivera has agreed to help me as far as correspondence and follow-up, and I just want to say that publicly. I just appreciate it a lot. And as we all know, I mean, everybody's headed to where I am at some point. So thank you for understanding, and that'll be unfortunately part of my future for a while. All right. Yes, Brian.
There's the third to the last item that I don't know if it got discussed at the last board meeting that I wasn't here at, but discussion of elementary school reconfiguration as it relates to issues of equity. I would love to find a time to actually get that put on an actual agenda for discussion, and wondering when we can do that and what sort of prep the DO might need in order to make that a worthwhile and kind of full-fledged discussion, informed discussion? I know you have all the time in the world. You have nothing else to do.
The board gave direction last time to just keep it on and we'll continue to
Well,
talk on it. So
I
we
think-
didn't have a specific date.
Yeah, some of the issue is that people hear that word and it sends a panic through the district as if it would start this year. I mean, it's something that I think we need to have thoughtful discussion about, and it warrants it. And we're not talking about fall, and it may not even be the next fall, but it is something that needs to be discussed. So I think it should be on there. And I think we should pick dates so we can start to look at things logically and not just have a few people up in arms and then we back off out of just trepidation of walking into the fire.
Okay.
So
I'll just keep asking every
well,
every
I think
meeting.
we need to put it on there
All right,
as we
so,
move forward.
yeah.
Maybe even like in May, June, that one in
No,
June.
I think that it's gonna be a multifaceted discussion or it's gonna be a progressive discussion. Multifaceted is a really not accurate word for what I'm talking about at all, but it's certainly, first, it's gonna be very broad like anything else. So what does that really mean? And what does it mean because I think if you ask anybody in the room here, anybody that's in the district or in the city here, they might have a different take on what does that mean.
Right.
It means something different to me. I'm sure, that's for everybody. So it starts with that very broad discussion of what is our goal? What do we expect to get out of it? But I feel strongly about it. So I just want to, so maybe it is. I mean, it'd be nice to have a preliminary discussion about it in the broadest sense before everybody splits for the summer.
Yep. What about that? What do you think, Dr. Porras? Maybe that June one, it's kind of the end of the year and some time to be reflective.
The first meeting in June,
Yep.
we can add it to that, sure.
I like that. And again, just
Broad,
that's just
broad
like,
discussion,
just gonna talk
not,
about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
What
We'll
does
still get 2,000
reconfiguration
to
mean
3,000
me?
emails, but still, now that you're writing them, yes, let's. All right,
It's all from me.
okay. Thank you. And this shamrock green matches my eyes. I think it'll change my life. Thank you. All right, really great board meeting, everybody. Thank you so much. Love the presentations and thank you for being here tonight. Adios.